Rain lashes against the quiet estate as the night settles in. Inside, a blond man focuses on his evening routine under the rushing water. He reaches out and shuts the valve, silencing the shower. Stepping into the hall, he dries off, unaware of a shadow lurking in the doorway. An intruder silently draws a sharp blade from her tactical leg holster. She lunges forward, her hand reaching for his blind spot. In a flash, she pins him, pressing a cold edge against his throat to secure the target. The man reacts instantly, catching her wrist to deflect the lethal blow. He twists her arm with professional precision, reversing the momentum entirely. With a heavy thud, he slams the assassin against the wall to neutralize her. He maintains a cold, calculating gaze over his captured opponent. The woman stares back, stunned that her target countered her so easily. Now seated, he ignores the shallow cut on his neck with eerie calm. A confident smirk plays on his lips as he begins to analyze his intruder. He pulls her close, expertly confiscating her communication device. The phone lights up with an urgent incoming call from a contact named Zero. He grips her collar, preparing to unmask the operative's true identity. Revealing her tactical gear, he announces that their dangerous game has officially begun. The duo stands together, signaling the start of a lethal new partnership. Staring up in disbelief, the assassin wonders if she's dealing with a literal monster. The target leans in close, mockingly admitting that her appearance is actually to his liking. He abruptly tears the fabric of her sleeve, leaving her to retreat and tighten her grip on her hidden blade. Refusing to back down, she raises the dagger high, ready to plunge it into her captor. He lets out a chuckle, effortlessly intercepting her strike with a casual grip on her wrist. A knock at the door interrupts the struggle as a loyal servant calls out for his master. The butler enters to announce that the engagement party is about to begin and requires his immediate presence. A sudden spark of inspiration hits the blonde man as he keeps the assassin pinned in place. He proposes a daring wager. If she acts as his dancing partner, he'll give her one final shot at his life. She remains wary, questioning why she should participate in such a bizarre and suspicious arrangement. He reminds her of the cold reality that her own organization will execute her for this failure if she doesn't find another way. Leaning in to finalize the pressure, he laments that such a capable woman chose the life of a killer. With a confident smile, he commands his staff to prepare a formal dress for their unexpected guests. The tension in the room settles into a cold stalemate as they prepare for the evening's festivities. He taunts her to make the night interesting, while she secretly realizes this might be her only path to survival. Relaxing on the sofa, he notes that she likely already knows everything there is to know about his public persona. She acknowledges his status, realizing he isn't just a corporate president, but something far more dangerous. Behind the polished suit is a powerful arms dealer who manipulates both the criminal underworld and the law. She looks him in the eye, seeking confirmation that he truly intends to give her one last opening. He confirms the terms of their deadly game with a sharp, knowing look. Recognizing the opportunity to fulfill her contract, she officially agrees to the deal. A phalanx of paparazzi waits outside the gala, their cameras clicking incessantly as they anticipate the night's high-profile arrivals. The sleek limousine finally pulls up, and the powerful CEO steps onto the pavement alongside his mysterious new partner. Dressed in a stunning black gown, the failed assassin maintains a stoic expression, ignoring the blinding flashes of the press. The blonde arms dealer leads the way with practiced confidence, ready to navigate the professional minefield of his own engagement party. He guides his companion forward, the pair becoming the immediate center of attention for every lens in the vicinity. Inside the opulent ballroom, the elite circle of high society mingles under the glow of majestic chandeliers. Among the guests, a woman in an elegant white gown enjoys a drink while observing the crowd. Her attention is suddenly seized by a familiar face as she realizes that the guest of honor, Mr. Ying, has finally made his entrance. Mr. Ying moves through the hall with his partner, their presence commanding the room and drawing every eye toward them. The woman in white stares in disbelief, her composure slipping as she sees the woman accompanying the CEO. She narrows her eyes, trying to place the identity of this unexpected guest who seems to have stolen the spotlight. Vowing to protect the integrity of her event, she refuses to let any newcomer disrupt the carefully planned proceedings. Mr. Ying senses the sharp tension in the air, noting the intense, competitive gaze passing between the two women. Putting on a facade of warmth, the fiancé approaches and questions him about his late arrival with a forced smile. While she clings to his arm, the assassin realizes she is likely facing the official fiancé, Ying Ce, who demands to know who this stranger is. The air grows thick with professional rivalry as the fiancé's expression shifts into one of deep suspicion. Turning his attention back to his partner, Mr. Ying boldly declares that she is the person he has been waiting for all evening. A silent explosion of tension ripples through the trio as the two women lock eyes in a fierce battle of wills. Sudden chaos erupts as a squad of gunmen storms the hall, forcing Mr. Ying to instinctively shield the assassin from the hail of bullets. Splattered with the blood of those around her, the assassin stares in disbelief at the sudden turn of violent events. Ying Ce stands frozen in the line of fire, clutching her wounds as the gala transforms into a scene of absolute carnage. From the safety of the hallway, Mr. Ying maintains a cold, analytical gaze on his injured fiancée while keeping the assassin close. Outraged by his callous disregard for his own partner's life, the assassin delivers a stinging slap across Mr. Ying's face. The impact leaves a burning red mark on his cheek, though he remains eerily composed despite the physical rebuke. She calls him out for being a total scumbag for his cruelty, realizing she can only depend on her own lethal skills to survive this nightmare. The grand ballroom is now a graveyard of broken glass and fallen bodies as the remaining guests flee for their lives. Mr. Ying watches with a calculated intensity, waiting to see how his mysterious guest will handle the surrounding threat. Moving with practiced precision, the assassin snatches a steak knife from a nearby table to use as a makeshift weapon. She blurs into motion, diving through the formation of armed guards with the agility of a seasoned professional. With a series of lightning-fast strikes, she carves through the attackers, blood spraying as she neutralizes the immediate danger. The gunmen collapse in a heap of discarded steel and shadows, leaving the assassin standing alone in the center of the fray. Watching her work with such lethal efficiency, Mr. Ying can't help but be captivated by the sheer brilliance of her technique. A fleeting memory of a woman in traditional attire flashes before him, mirroring the deadly grace he sees in the assassin now. Her focused profile reveals a cold determination that transcends her current role as his temporary date. Mr. Ying feels a sharp, rhythmic thumping in his chest as his pulse quickens from the adrenaline of the moment. His expression softens into one of genuine realization, his heart racing at the sheer intensity of the spectacle before him. A faint smile crosses his lips as he finally recognizes her true identity, whispering the name Lingdi under his breath. A masked gunman brandishes his weapon, threatening to level the building if Ying Ce isn't handed over immediately. Lingdi watches in disbelief as the attackers survive fatal wounds, calling for backup as they continue their relentless assault. The high society engagement party dissolves into pure panic as guests flee the path of the encroaching monsters. Lingdi remains centered amidst the chaos, her sharp gaze scanning for a way to survive the impossible. She gasps and covers her mouth, unable to comprehend how these men are still standing after being shot dead. Out of nowhere, a mysterious blonde man approaches her, asking with eerie calmness if she's actually scared. Lingdi turns her full attention to the stranger, demanding to know exactly who or what he is. The man simply glances away with a faint, enigmatic smile, playing a dangerous game of words. A towering, dark shadow looms over Lingdi as the man identifies himself as one of the undead. He leans in close to the assassin, explaining the situation in terms a human can understand. The horrifying truth finally hits her as she realizes she is facing an actual zombie. Cornered and terrified, a lone gunman holds a detonator aloft, warning the monster to stay away. Driven by pure desperation, the soldier's thumb presses down hard on the trigger. The blonde man's expression shifts instantly as he senses the lethal energy of the bomb. He acts on pure instinct, pulling Lingdi into a protective embrace to shield her from the impending blast. A massive fireball erupts, consuming the entire room in a blinding flash of heat and debris. Lingdi slowly opens her eyes amidst the smoldering ruins, shocked to find herself completely unscathed by the explosion. She looks up in a daze, her eyes searching for the man who threw himself into the fire for her. The stranger stands tall amidst the flames, his skin peeling back to reveal the terrifying visage of an immortal guardian. Lingdi stares in utter disbelief, her mind racing to process the impossible scene unfolding before her eyes. To her shock, the blonde man's flesh begins to hiss and steam as his horrific injuries start to knit back together in real time. A sharp, echoing crack snaps her attention back to the immediate danger lurking in the shadows. Surrounded by a squad of armed mercenaries, the immortal guardian stands his ground, shielding the trembling assassin from the encroaching threat. Gritting her teeth, Lingdi realizes they are trapped in a lethal crossfire with no easy way out. The man's grip is firm and commanding as he orders her to stay exactly where she is for her own safety. With a calm resolve, he promises to handle the onslaught himself, stepping forward to face the gunman. He readies a makeshift weapon, his expression cold and focused on the tactical elimination of their attackers. In a blur of motion, he lunges at the nearest mercenary, striking with a speed that defies human limits. As the inferno roars around them, the desperate cries of the wounded echo through the burning debris. Despite the flames licking at his clothes, the immortal warrior remains unfazed, his singular focus fixed on the battle ahead. He glances down at the incapacitated foes, ensuring that the immediate threat has been neutralized. Lingdi's blood runs cold as she spots a shivering figure in a white dress emerging from the heart of the blaze. A sudden, prickly sensation on the back of her neck warns her that something even more dangerous is watching her from the smoke. Through the wall of fire, the woman's face appears, her eyes glowing with a terrifying, supernatural crimson light. Horror washes over Lingdi as she realizes that they aren't just fighting men, but a legion of literal monsters. The blonde man stands tall against the encroaching nightmare, even as the red-eyed woman declares there is no way out. The creature's gaze is predatory, fixated on its prey with a chilling, inhuman intensity. Overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the supernatural chaos, Lingdi can only stare in terror as the true nature of her enemies is revealed. The city lights shimmer outside the towering hotel as the night settles in. Lingdi slips into her room, desperate for a moment of peace. Her face reflects the heavy toll of the night's chaos. She collapses onto the soft bed, her energy completely spent. Lingdi stares upward, dismissing the horrific events as a mere nightmare. She drifts off, hoping sleep will erase the day's trauma. Suddenly, she awakens in a surreal, glowing realm of memory. Confusion clouds her features as the vision takes hold. She sees a woman from a past era training alongside her master. The ancient woman bears a striking, ethereal beauty. Lingdi realizes with shock how much they resemble one another. A sudden gasp escapes her as the dream intensifies. Shadowy figures gather in a solemn, ancient ceremony. Lingdi clutches her heart, overwhelmed by the shifting visions. The scene shifts to a grand palace engulfed in roaring flames. Amidst the fire, the woman stands resolute against a mysterious companion. Lingdi reaches out, desperate to grasp the fading truth. The woman in the vision feels her own face, sensing an alien weight. Her eyes reflect the flickering orange glow of the destruction. A faceless man begs her to stay as she questions his existence. She tenderly touches his cheek, wondering why he weeps. The connection feels profound yet entirely forgotten. Tears fall as the man's identity remains locked behind the veil of time. Lingdi bolts upright in bed, her breath hitching as she returns to the waking world. She stares blankly ahead, her mind racing to determine if the burning palace was just a figment of her imagination. The silence of the hotel room offers no comfort as she continues to question the reality of her visions. Sunlight filters through the sheer curtains, creating a peaceful scene that feels entirely at odds with her internal turmoil. Clutching her head in frustration, she agonizes over the mystery of the woman in her dream and the safety of the others. Her gaze turns sharp and focused, the lingering haze of sleep quickly vanishing. The sudden buzz of her smartphone on the desk breaks the heavy silence. She checks the screen, her heart sinking as she confirms that the horrors of the previous day were undeniably real. The text from an unknown sender delivers a chilling ultimatum: complete the assassination task or face total erasure. She tosses the phone aside in disgust, cursing the literal monsters and undead freaks she's been forced to deal with. A violent bang at the door shatters her focus, signaling an abrupt arrival. Lingdi's eyes flash with suspicion as she demands to know who is disturbing her. The persistent ringing of the doorbell confirms that whoever is outside isn't going away. Still wearing her tactical black dress, she moves toward the door to confront the visitor. A young man with soft features peers into the room, his presence appearing entirely non-threatening. He stands there awkwardly, balancing a vase of fresh flowers and a pink pastry box in his arms. Lingdi stares back in genuine confusion, caught off guard by a mundane encounter. The man asks why she's still dressed for a gala, his concern evident as he takes in her disheveled state. She quickly masks her killer instincts with a playful laugh, explaining away her appearance as the result of a wild party, while hiding behind her civilian alias, Dai Ling. The young man notices Lingdi's injuries, but she quickly deflects his concern with a casual excuse about the chaos of youth. He gently places a hand on her head, softly reminding her that she really needs to take better care of herself. With a warm smile, he insists on preparing breakfast and encourages her to go get cleaned up first. Lingdi heads toward the bathroom, her mind still heavy with the weight of her secret life and the mission ahead. The door handle clicks shut, signaling a brief moment of solitude for the weary assassin. In the kitchen, the young man maintains a professional focus on the meal, carefully washing fresh vegetables for their breakfast. His expression shifts into a more serious, contemplative look as he works in silence. While washing up, Lingdi agonizes over the impossible ultimatum of eliminating targets that aren't even human. Elsewhere, a sun-drenched executive office becomes the stage for a high-stakes conversation. A blonde man stands by his desk, looking out over the city while engaged in a tense phone call. He stares down at his device, his voice hardening as he commands the person on the other end to return. Lounging on the sofa, a red-haired woman examines a profile and asks this is the person he has been hunting for. The blonde man looks away with a hollow gaze, admitting that he has already waited nearly 1,000 years for this moment. He declares with absolute certainty that he cannot afford to wait any longer. Back at the apartment, a refreshed Lingdi steps out to join her guest, looking far more composed. A beautifully plated breakfast of pancakes and fruit is already waiting for her on the table. They sit together for a quiet meal, the atmosphere remaining calm and strictly friendly. Suddenly, a notification pings on her phone, revealing a lucrative job recruitment post for the Mir Group. The young man catches a glimpse of the screen and remarks on just how well remunerated the position is. Lingdi grips her glass tightly, her sharp mind immediately processing the potential of this new lead. She realizes that this unexpected opening might be the perfect tactical entry point to finally complete her mission. The city skyline glimmers under the moonlight as the mission finally begins to take shape. Lingdi stays glued to her screen, hunting for any opening that will get her inside the Mir Group. A high-stakes opportunity appears. Ying's group is hiring a personal assistant for the president, and gender is no obstacle for the role. She realizes this is the ultimate chance to infiltrate the inner circle and monitor her target's every move from the inside. To ensure she remains a ghost, she meticulously crafts a new identity, staring back at a reflection that no longer looks like her former self. Adjusting her glasses, she commits to the role of a man, certain that this masculine disguise will keep her past buried. The towering headquarters of the corporation loom over the city, a concrete fortress where her target resides. Dressed in a sharp suit, she navigates the busy lobby until a sudden collision sends her application papers flying. She looks up to find a mysterious blonde man standing before her, his presence radiating an overwhelming aura of authority. Lingdi immediately drops to the floor, frantically scrambling to collect her scattered documents before anyone can look too closely. The man remains silent, his piercing eyes tracking her every movement with a chilling level of interest. She watches cautiously as he turns to leave, the weight of his intense gaze still lingering on her shoulders. Just before the elevator doors seal shut, he offers one last enigmatic look that sends a shiver down her spine. She tries to shake off the unease, telling herself that her masculine persona is completely foolproof and undetected. However, the blonde man's expression reveals a hidden depth of knowledge that she hasn't yet realized. Despite her confidence, a nagging doubt starts to creep in about whether she truly went unnoticed during that encounter. She forces herself to maintain a professional composure, refusing to let nerves ruin the first step of her infiltration. Meanwhile, the blonde man settles into his executive office, the true master of this corporate domain. He holds the key to her fate in his hands, a confident smile playing across his lips as he reviews the new applicants. He places the paperwork down with finality, his thousand-year search finally converging on this single moment. Looking at the resume of Dai Ling, he knows the truth. No matter the disguise, he has finally found her. The interviewer reclines in her chair, frustrated that she's been tasked with selecting a personal assistant for the elusive Ying Ce. She rests her head on her hand, questioning why thousand-year-old zombies like them would ever need protection from mere humans. From her perspective, the row of nervous candidates waiting for their turn looks entirely unremarkable. Among them is Lingdi disguised as Dai Ling, silently hoping that the upcoming interview won't be too grueling. Suddenly, the peace is shattered as armed men in masks storm the room, screaming for everyone to put their hands up. The interviewer leaps to her feet in total shock, completely caught off guard by the sudden chaos. Lingdi scans the room with a puzzled expression, trying to make sense of this unexpected hostile takeover. She quickly deduces that if the role requires both brains and brawn, this must be a live-action performance test. Without a second thought, she sprints forward as the other candidates scramble away in a blind panic. Lingdi positions herself protectively in front of the interviewer, sternly ordering her to stay back and remain still. She closes the distance instantly, striking one of the masked intruders before he can even react. With expert precision, she maneuvers behind the gunman and strips the weapon right out of his holster. She vaults into the air with the stolen firearm, turning the tables on the remaining attackers in one fluid motion. With a cold, calculated gaze, she pulls the trigger and lets the rounds fly. The masked gunmen collapse across the floor, their suits stained with red as Lingdi stands victorious. The interviewer watches the display with a smirk, genuinely impressed by the applicant's combat prowess. When a final assailant attempts a desperate punch, Lingdi catches his arm with effortless ease. She signals for the assault to end, her sharp eyes indicating she has completely seen through the ruse. Right on cue, the CEO himself enters the room with his entourage to survey the results of the test. The red-haired interviewer exhales in a huff, annoyed that she wasn't warned about this staged scenario. Lingdi looks down at the ammunition with a knowing look, her suspicions about the situation fully confirmed. She examines the residue on the attacker's hand, noting that the bullets were actually just paintballs. The CEO stops directly in front of her, looming over his newest prospect with a look of intense interest. Under his piercing gaze, Lingdi maintains her composure as he officially announces that Dai Ling is now employed. Ying Ce designates a nearby desk as the assassin's new workstation. Lingdi realizes this placement ensures she remains under his constant, watchful gaze. She accepts the proximity, viewing it as a shortcut to uncovering his guarded secrets. Ying Ce remains patient, expecting her true persona to surface eventually. The workload is immense, drowning the new assistant in towers of documents. Watching her handle the pressure, Ying Ce is impressed by her quick adjustment. A sharp snap of his fingers signals a demand for immediate refreshment. Lingdi maintains her professional facade while delivering the requested beverage. While she doubts her domestic skills, Ying Ce resolves to keep her within reach. The CEO immediately rejects the drink, questioning if she intends to poison him. He dictates a highly technical recipe, demanding impossible precision for the next brew. Nearby staff whisper about the CEO's legendary short fuse and her misfortune. Lingdi adjusts her approach, carefully measuring ingredients to meet his exacting standards. The co-workers depart, leaving the assistant to navigate the CEO's difficult temperament alone. A mysterious woman in white strides through the corporate halls with purpose. Lingdi's instincts flare as she detects a hostile aura approaching from behind. The stranger lunges forward, closing the distance in a sudden blur of motion. The woman seizes Lingdi, stunned to find the assassin operating in a professional setting. Lingdi freezes, fearing her elaborate disguise has been compromised by this unexpected arrival. Lingdi maintains her composure, politely insisting that the mysterious woman has made a mistake and needs to drop the accusations immediately. Refusing to be detained, Lingdi attempts to excuse herself from the tense confrontation, while the stranger warns her that she won't accept defeat so easily. Suddenly, the woman lashes out with a swift strike, catching Lingdi off guard as she tries to walk away. The attacker accuses Lingdi of hiding professional-level skills and threatens to expose her to Ying Ce, leaving the assassin worried about her cover. Her face contorting with malice, the woman prepares a devastating clawed hand technique, determined to ensure Lingdi doesn't escape this time. Before Lingdi can react, the stranger closes the distance with terrifying speed, seizing her arm with an iron grip. The assailant boasts of 1,000-year superiority, leaving Lingdi feeling physically drained and questioning the supernatural nature of her opponent. Mocking her as a mere human, the woman explains that Lingdi is defenseless against her corrosive energy without the CEO's direct protection. Lingdi sinks to the floor, cornered as the woman reflects on their ancient, bitter history that apparently spans a millennium. With a cold, murderous glare, the woman warns Lingdi that her failure to remember the past will lead to her being killed yet again. The attacker raises her hand for a finishing blow, ready to end the assassin's infiltration once and for all. Meanwhile, back in the main office, Ying Ce grows restless, wondering why his new assistant is taking so long with a simple task. He steps away from his desk, his instincts screaming that something has gone wrong during the routine errand. In the hallway, two employees whisper nervously about whether the handsome new hire has been targeted by the dangerous Miss Yingji. Ying Ce's expression turns sharp and deadly as he overhears the gossip, realizing his assistant is in grave danger from a familiar threat. Ying Ce sprints down the hallway, cursing under his breath as he realizes he might be too late to stop the carnage. He slams the door open with a desperate cry, praying the worst hasn't already happened to his assistant. His eyes widen in horror as the reflection of the violent scene before him flashes across his iris. He lunges forward just in time, catching Lingdi's limp body before she hits the cold floor. Yingji stands frozen, stunned by the CEO's sudden and frantic intervention. Ying Ce turns a gaze of pure, icy rage toward the woman responsible for this supernatural assault. Yingji recoils, visibly shaken by the sheer intensity of his protective fury. The room falls into a heavy silence as Ying Ce positions himself like an unbreakable shield over the fallen assassin. He confronts Yingji directly, demanding to know where she found the gall to lay a hand on his woman. With a sharp, decisive motion, he casts Yingji aside, making it clear that either provocation will result in her death. He carefully gathers the unconscious Lingdi into his arms, his focus shifting entirely to her survival. As he carries her out, the dark, corrosive marks eating away at her skin reveal the lethal nature of the attack she just endured. Left behind in the shadows, Yingji watches them leave with a heart full of bitterness and resentment. Soon after, Ying Ce arrives at a secure medical facility, desperate for professional help to save her life. He immediately summons a trusted physician to the room to begin an emergency assessment. The doctor works quickly, examining the unconscious girl to gauge the extent of the internal damage. The physician delivers a grim diagnosis, explaining that a rare tribal treasure is the only thing that can neutralize the corrosive gas. Undeterred by the difficulty of the task, Ying Ce orders the doctor to keep her stable while he vows to secure the cure. The scene opens on a serene traditional estate, a peaceful facade for the high-stakes negotiation about to take place. An elderly man calmly waters the garden, seemingly indifferent to the presence of the powerful CEO standing behind him. Ying Ce cuts straight to the point, demanding to borrow the blue seal, the legendary relic of the tribe. The elder stops his task in shock, whispering Ying Ce's name as he realizes the gravity of the request. Despite the elder's warning that the seal is a sacred relic, Ying Ce's resolve remains unshakable as he insists his need is absolute. The elder scoffs at his arrogance, reminding him that even the king of zombies cannot shield him from his own reckless will. Finally relenting, the elder explains that to earn the blue seal, Ying Ce must survive the trials of the unlimited territory of zombies. As a swirling dark portal manifests, the elder warns that entering this realm means losing the innate self-healing powers of a zombie. Without waiting for the final warning to finish, Ying Ce boldly steps into the void, prepared to risk everything for Lingdi. The elder watches the portal close, muttering that the young CEO is truly putting his life on the line. Meanwhile, under the cover of night, the medical facility remains silent as the clock ticks against Lingdi's survival. Lingdi lies motionless in her hospital bed, her life hanging by a thread as she fights the corrosive poison. In her unconscious state, she finds herself drifting through a misty, ethereal dreamscape, searching for a way out. Suddenly, a vision of two women from the past appears, dressed in traditional robes and holding a blade between them. The atmosphere grows heavy as one woman asks the other if she was the one who carried out the lethal deed. A stern warning is issued, reminding the blonde-haired woman that her actions at the Butterfly Pavilion carry a death sentence. With a cold and defiant smile, she declares that no matter the consequence, she will never regret what she has done. The blonde man's voice trembles with a mix of rage and sorrow as he explains that he was forced to kill his enemies to prevent his own execution by those who view him as a threat to the throne. He clutches his head in absolute despair, unable to comprehend why his own father would treat him as a target rather than a son. Realizing the danger is closing in, he stares intensely at the girl and declares that they must flee this place immediately to survive. From the sidelines of the memory, Lingdi watches in a daze as the man carries the young girl away into the distance of her own subconscious. She stumbles through the void of her mind, clutching her temples as the weight of these fragmented memories becomes an unbearable physical pain. Her eyes slowly flutter open, the soft white of a pillow greeting her as she finally breaks free from the nightmare. A sudden jolt of alertness hits her, and she looks around the room with a wide-eyed sense of confusion. A calm, professional doctor stands by her side, informing her that she is currently safe within the walls of Mr. Ying Ce's private residence. Lingdi sits up abruptly, her heart racing as she wonders if her savior has finally discovered the truth she has worked so hard to hide. The doctor reassures her that Ying Ce left the premises as soon as she was settled, leaving instructions that she is free to depart whenever she feels strong enough. Fearing for her future, Lingdi desperately begs the doctor to keep her gender a secret so she doesn't lose her position, unaware that the doctor is already keeping a secret of his own. The scene shifts away from the recovery room to the cold, glass exterior of a massive corporate skyscraper towering over the city. Inside a high-end office, a blonde man in a sharp suit reviews a stack of documents, his cold gaze never leaving the page as he permits someone to enter. A subordinate wearing glasses and professional attire enters the room, struggling to balance a massive pile of paperwork in his arms. He carefully sets the heavy stack onto the desk for review, while the boss gives a dismissive command to leave the files and move on. The blonde executive looks up with a piercing stare, questioning if there is any other business that needs his immediate attention. Breaking into a nervous sweat, the assistant pauses for a moment before finally gathering the courage to offer a sincere word of gratitude to his superior. Mr. Ying stares coldly, unimpressed by the current report. Dai Ling pushes back, demanding to know his true intentions. The executive rises, dominating the space with an intimidating presence. He leans in close, catching her off guard with a sudden proposal. Dismissing the tension, he shoves her toward the door to prepare a drink. He watches her exit, wondering when she will finally reveal her true identity. Dai Ling retreats to the quiet sanctuary of the office tea room. While preparing the coffee, she questions her boss's confusing personal motives. She shakes her head vigorously to clear these distracting thoughts from her mind. An assistant interrupts, announcing that Mr. Ying requires her presence immediately. The scene shifts to the building's sterile, high-end parking garage. Seated in the luxury vehicle, she questions their sudden departure and destination. Without warning, Mr. Ying lunges across the seat toward her. Startled by the proximity, she demands to know what he is doing. He ignores her protest, reaching firmly for the safety strap beside her. He simply secures her seatbelt, mocking her unnecessary anxiety as they depart. Dai Ling centers herself, reminding her inner assassin to stay focused on the mission. The red convertible pulls up to the busy airport terminal. Lingdi steps out, questioning if they are meeting someone. Ying Ce dismisses the car, handing his keys to the valet. Confusion sets in as Lingdi trails behind her silent boss. She suddenly collides with his back, reeling from the impact. He clarifies they are actually embarking on a business trip. Lingdi stares in disbelief at the sudden change of plans. Ying Ce demands she keep pace as he heads inside. Internal panic rises as she processes this unexpected mission. He secretly mocks her disguise, eager to unmask her true identity. Night falls as they arrive at a luxury hotel. Lingdi pauses at the threshold, questioning the room arrangement. Ying Ce sheds his coat, commanding her to enter the suite. She argues for professional boundaries and a separate room. Suddenly, he seizes her wrist, cutting off her protest. He corners her, testing her nerves as she maintains her cover. Ying Ce leans in with a cold smirk, dismissively assuring Lingdi that she has nothing to fear from him personally. After he turns away, Lingdi brushes her cheek in frustration, certain that every move he makes is a calculated attempt to rattle her cover. The heavy silence of the luxury suite offers no comfort as the night sets in. Lingdi collapses onto the bed in her suit, staring at the ceiling while her mind races with the day's events. The sudden vibration of her phone breaks the quiet, signaling an urgent incoming message. She reads a digital ultimatum from an unknown sender, demanding she complete her mission within 30 days or face termination. Her expression darkens as she contemplates the near-impossible task of taking down a target with such supernatural resilience. Exhausted by the mounting pressure of her double life, she lies motionless on the mattress. In the adjacent room, the shadows shift near the heavy wooden doors. Ying Ce appears to be in a deep sleep, his guard seemingly lowered for the first time tonight. A shadowy figure dressed in a staff uniform creeps toward the bed with lethal intent. The intruder lunges forward, a sharp blade glinting as they prepare to deliver a fatal strike to the executive. Ying Ce's eyes snap open with predatory focus, proving he was fully aware of the threat the entire time. He moves with blurred speed, intercepting the attacker's strike by seizing their arm mid-air. The executive quickly flips the momentum, pinning the would-be killer against the mattress to neutralize the threat. He remains perfectly composed, watching the intruder's desperate reaction with a chilling lack of fear. Realizing the assassination attempt has failed, the intruder quickly turns and flees the room. Ying Ce stands up to survey the room, noting that his enemies are as persistent as ever. Lingdi sits on the edge of her bed, her mind racing as she processes the constant pressure of her mission. A sharp knock at the door breaks the silence, instantly putting the undercover assassin on high alert. Ying Ce's voice booms from the hallway demanding entry, forcing her to stall for time while her heart hammers against her ribs. In a blur of desperate motion, she tosses her clothes aside and scrambles into her male assistant disguise to maintain her cover. She finally pulls the door open to find Ying Ce waiting, his presence commanding as he performs a sudden check on his staff. He reports a security breach in his own quarters, prompting her to play the role of the concerned and dutiful employee. To her absolute shock, Ying Ce settles onto the bed and announces he will be staying in her room to ensure total security for the night. A sudden shift in their professional arrangement leaves her completely stunned and visibly breaking into a nervous sweat. He leans back and reminds her that her primary duty is his absolute protection at all hours of the day. She tries to push back, arguing that such intensive, around-the-clock security duties weren't part of her original contract. Ying Ce ignores the protest and makes himself comfortable, questioning why she is still standing around instead of resting for the next shift. He insists she stay close for safety, but quickly notes that she is still wearing her full professional attire even while off the clock. She quickly fabricates an excuse, claiming that sleeping in her uniform is simply a personal habit to stay ready for any emergency. He accepts the explanation for now, closing his eyes while noting there will be plenty of time to discuss their future protocols later. Once his breathing steadies, she watches him closely, finally able to exhale a breath she didn't know she was holding. Deep doubt begins to cloud her mind as she wonders if her target has already deduced the secret behind her identity. As the sun begins to rise over the city, the towering hotel stands silent, hiding the high-stakes tension of the night within its glass walls. Lingdi and Ying Ce walk through the plaza, unaware that their cover is about to be challenged by a familiar face. Suddenly, a voice calls out her alias as her neighbor. Cheng Zheyu waves enthusiastically from a distance. Panic sets in for Lingdi as she realizes a ghost from her past has just appeared at the worst possible moment. The modern office complex stands tall, framing a meeting that could shatter her carefully crafted facade. Nervous sweat beads on her brow as she questions his presence, desperately hoping he won't recognize her through the suit. Cheng Zheyu approaches with a friendly smile, though his internal confusion grows as he observes her masculine attire. Thinking quickly, she introduces herself as an assistant on a business trip, gesturing toward the imposing figure behind her. Ying Ce looms over her with a cold, protective gaze, demanding to know the identity of this unexpected stranger. Maintaining his composure, Cheng Zheyu extends a hand and identifies himself simply as her neighbor. The two men lock eyes during a formal greeting, the air instantly thickening with unspoken hostility. Ying Ce grips the man's hand with crushing force, turning a simple gesture into a silent, professional power struggle. Sensing the rising danger, Lingdi hurriedly grabs Ying Ce's arm to drag him away before things escalate. She offers a quick, embarrassed apology, blaming her boss's aggressive behavior on a short temper. With a final polite wave, she makes a hasty exit, eager to put as much distance as possible between her two worlds. Left behind in the courtyard, Cheng Zhe watches them depart, his eyes narrowing as he suspiciously whispers the name of the zombie king. The scene shifts to a high-end restaurant, a sprawling modern estate where every architectural detail screams luxury. Lingdi stares at the menu in utter disbelief, realizing that even a simple dish of shredded potatoes costs more than she ever imagined. Ying Ce watches her intently, his mind focused on a singular goal. He knows Cheng Zheyu is on her trail, and he's determined to expose her true identity immediately. He leans in close to ask for her order, maintaining a strictly professional focus on the dinner engagement. Feeling the weight of the astronomical prices, Lingdi closes the menu and tells him to choose, unable to justify the cost of the meal. Ying Ce reaches out to take the menu back, insisting that she doesn't need to worry about the bill, because he can easily afford to support her. Lingdi is left completely baffled by his sudden declaration, wondering if there is a hidden motive behind his intense personal interest. With a sharp, knowing glint in his eye, Ying Ce tells her that it is finally time to drop the act. He looms over her from behind, placing his hands on her shoulders and asking if she truly thinks he's just playing games. She tries to maintain her professional composure, desperately suggesting that they focus on ordering their food first. Ying Ce ignores the deflection, tightening his presence around her to ensure she cannot escape this direct confrontation. He leans in to whisper a demand, asking exactly when she plans to stop hiding behind her elaborate facade. Panic begins to set in for Lingdi, as she wonders if he has truly seen through her disguise this entire time. She realizes that if he had known the truth from the start, he never would have allowed her to remain by his side for so long. Ying Ce breaks the silence with a pointed question, asking her if she has a specific professional preference for wearing wigs. Her heart skips a beat as the realization hits her. Her cover has been officially blown. He casually lifts a strand of her hair, noting how exhausting it must be for a professional killer to masquerade as a simple assistant. In a flash, Lingdi abandons the charade and draws a hidden blade, aiming it directly at his throat with lethal precision. Ying Ce doesn't even flinch, staring down the sharp edge of the knife with an unnerving, calm focus. With her secret out in the open, Lingdi's expression turns cold as she tells him that since he's seen the truth, he has no choice but to die. Ying Ce drops a bombshell, calmly reminding Lingdi that as a zombie, conventional weapons won't finish him off. He reveals that even his father fears his power as a rising overlord, but instead of fighting, he offers her a position on his staff. Lingdi freezes in pure shock, her mind racing as she tries to process this impossible revelation. She stares at him intently, realizing he bears a striking resemblance to a mysterious figure from her own dreams. Ying Ce maintains his cool composure, promising that all her questions will be answered if she accepts the role of his personal assistant. Lingdi challenges him, asking if he's truly willing to risk his life by keeping a trained killer in such close proximity. Flipping through a menu, Ying Ce notes that the arrangement is a win-win, giving her the chance to strike while he gets his assistant. Lingdi weighs her options, concluding that staying close is the most efficient way to finally complete her deadly assignment. With a look of grim determination, she officially accepts the offer to join his professional inner circle. A satisfied smirk plays on Ying Ce's lips as he vows to help her recover every lost memory of their shared history. The scene shifts to the exterior of a high-end commercial district as they begin their first day of work. Lingdi questions their destination, only for Ying Ce to insist that they are here strictly for professional business matters. As they enter a luxury boutique, Lingdi wonders if her new boss is planning to expand his empire into the fashion industry. Ying Ce takes charge of the professional styling session, instructing the clerk to select a wardrobe that fits Lingdi's new role. Lingdi stands by skeptically as the staff begins pulling various outfits for her to try on. While the transformation begins, Ying Ce waits patiently in the lounge, sipping on a hot drink. The focus shifts to the dressing room door as the final selection is made. A polished high heel steps out onto the floor, signaling the completion of the professional makeover. Ying Ce looks up, his sharp eyes evaluating the success of the new corporate look. Lingdi emerges wearing a sophisticated professional ensemble that the clerk insists is the perfect fit for her. Satisfied with the professional results, Ying Ce gives his final approval to purchase the entire set. Lingdi strikes a professional pose in her new office attire, though her gaze remains sharp and observant of her surroundings. The assassin finds herself flushing with a hint of embarrassment as she continues to model the various outfits selected for her transformation. Ying Ce watches with a satisfied, calm expression, clearly pleased with the high-end look of his new personal assistant. Carrying her new wardrobe in several bags, Lingdi prepares to step away while Ying Ce asks her to wait for a moment. She turns back with a skeptical look, questioning why a simple business meeting required such an extensive and expensive shopping spree. Ying Ce leans in to clarify that maintaining a professional corporate image is a vital part of her new responsibilities to the company. Accepting the explanation with a quick nod of thanks, Lingdi takes her leave to find the restroom and regroup. As she walks, a fleeting shadow catches her eye in the reflection of a nearby glass pane, putting her on high alert. She pauses in the hallway, her sharp instincts screaming that someone is lurking just out of her line of sight. Shaking off the feeling, she tries to convince herself that the stress of the mission is simply making her overly paranoid. Suddenly, a sharp gasp escapes her as she is caught off guard by a sudden, violent movement. A mysterious pink-haired woman with crimson eyes lunges forward, pinning Lingdi against the wall and claiming there is no escape this time. The assailant's claw-like fingers tighten around Lingdi's throat, making it nearly impossible for the assassin to fight back. Struggling for breath, Lingdi finds herself completely restrained by the aggressive newcomer's surprising strength. Despite the pressure on her windpipe, Lingdi glares back at the attacker, who tells her to go to hell with pure vitriol. Outside in the bustling corridor, the mall remains peaceful and completely oblivious to the life-or-death struggle occurring nearby. Ying Ce checks his watch with growing concern, realizing that his assistant has been gone far longer than a simple break should take. Suddenly, the door bursts open as Lingdi stumbles back into the main area, clutching her throat and gasping for air. As Ying Ce rushes to support his distressed assistant, the mysterious woman watches from the shadows, whispering the king's name in shock. The pink-haired assailant grips her bleeding arm, her gaze hardening with a mix of pain and calculation. Cheng Ce rushes onto the scene, his face contorted with confusion as he tries to process the sudden chaos. His heart sinks the moment he spots his neighbor in trouble, desperately calling out Lingdi's name. The mysterious attacker clings to Ying Ce's arm, playing the victim and begging for his help. Ignoring the intruder's pleas, Cheng Ce pulls Lingdi into a protective embrace to check her condition. Tension crackles in the air as the two men lock eyes, with Ying Ce demanding to know why the neighbor is even there. Cheng Ce fires back a sharp accusation, pointing out that Lingdi's severe injuries prove she was the victim of a sneak attack. The pink-haired woman tries to spin another lie, but Ying Ce cuts her off with a cold, final command to stop. Amidst the argument, Cheng Ce is stunned to witness Lingdi's deep gashes beginning to knit themselves back together right before his eyes. Determined to shield her from further danger, Cheng Ce insists that he should be the one to take over her care. Ying Ce's expression turns icy as he stakes his claim, making it clear that Lingdi is his, and he won't let anyone take her away. Without another word, the zombie king asserts his authority by lifting Lingdi effortlessly into a bridal carriage. Cheng Ce warns that lingering is a waste of precious time, but Ying Ce refuses to negotiate on who Lingdi stays with, leaving the neighbor and the attacker in his wake. Ying Ce carries the wounded assassin away from the scene of the struggle. When Cheng Ce tries to offer the pink-haired woman a trip to the hospital, She aggressively lashes out and tells him to get lost. He watches her closely, realizing that her own wounds are suspiciously minor compared to the intensity of the fight. Lingdi remains still and vulnerable, her life resting entirely in the hands of the man she was originally sent to kill. A sense of grim satisfaction settles over Ying Ce as he maintains his firm hold on his personal assistant. A haunting vision from the distant past resurfaces, showing a regal Ying Ce holding a familiar woman who once whispered his name with her final breath. Lingdi remains limp and unresponsive, her life hanging in the balance as she's rushed away from the scene of the attack. The sterile silence of the hospital lobby is about to be shattered by a desperate and powerful arrival. Ying Ce's eyes burn with a protective fury as he holds Lingdi close, demanding that the facility's top medical experts see her immediately. He storms through the reception area, refusing to let go of her even for a second as the pink-haired woman trails behind in utter shock. Watching from the sidelines, the attacker is baffled, unable to comprehend why the powerful zombie king is so visibly shaken over a simple coma. After a thorough examination, the head doctor delivers the relieving news that Lingdi is merely suffering from extreme shock and minor physical wounds. The physician emphasizes the need for a peaceful environment and a proper nutritious diet, earning a solemn promise of cooperation from a focused Ying Ce. Once the room clears, Ying Ce stands a lonely vigil by the bedside, his heart heavy with the sight of her fragile state. He reaches out to take her hand, only to be struck by the chilling and unnatural coldness of her skin. Overwhelmed by a sudden wave of guilt, he presses her hand to his cheek and silently pleads for her to wake up. Lingdi finally stirs from her slumber, her vision blurry and confused as she asks about her current surroundings. Ying Ce leans in with a gentle gaze, softly assuring her that she is safe and currently recovering in the hospital. He places a steadying hand on her brow, explaining that she's been unconscious for several hours and needs to remain under strict observation. Despite her weakened condition, Lingdi's assassin instincts kick in as she tries to leave, driven by the crushing pressure of her ticking deadline. Her impulsive attempt to stand is cut short by a sharp sting of pain, forcing a pained gasp from her lips as she collapses back. Ying Ce loses his patience with her stubbornness, looming over the bed with a stern warning to stay put, or he'll be forced to personally ensure she doesn't move. Lingdi shoots back a defiant look, reminding him that his overbearing and commanding behavior is completely unprofessional for their working relationship. Ignoring the jab, Ying Ce maintains his authority, instructing her to remain in the ward while he goes to handle the administrative paperwork for her stay. Ying Ce marches down the hospital corridor, his presence demanding immediate attention from the woman waiting there. With a gaze as cold as ice, he towers over her and delivers a simple, chilling command to follow him. As they walk away from the ward, Ying Ce's voice drops to a deadly whisper, reiterating his promise to kill her if she ever touches Lingdi again. The woman breaks into desperate tears, insisting she was the victim, but Ying Ce ruthlessly reminds her who is actually stuck in a hospital bed. She clings to her lies, frantically claiming that Lingdi is merely putting on an act to deceive him. Ying Ce's patience is gone, stating he only spares her life out of respect for her father's past alliance. Struck by his absolute lack of mercy, the woman stares back in total shock and disbelief. He turns his back on her completely, making it clear that even looking at her for another second is a burden. She cries out one last time, questioning why he would choose to die for someone like Lingdi. Without a hint of hesitation, Ying Ce declares that if Lingdi dies, his own life will cease to have any meaning. Meanwhile, at a nearby stall, Cheng Zeu is busy ordering a warm bowl of sliced fish congee to take away. He waits patiently at the counter, focused on getting the meal back to the hospital as quickly as possible. His reflection appears in the glass panel of the hospital room door as he arrives to check on the patient. Lingdi looks up in surprise as the door clicks open, wondering how her neighbor found her. Cheng Zeu offers a warm, reassuring smile as he holds out the bag of hot food. Lingdi sighs, feeling a wave of guilt for causing trouble for her neighbor once again. She lifts the lid, the sweet aroma of her favorite dish instantly filling the sterile room. Taking a quick bite, she winces slightly as the steaming congee burns her tongue. Seeing her struggle, Cheng Zeu immediately reaches out to take the spoon and help her eat. He gives her a gentle look, insisting that she focus entirely on her recovery instead of overthinking things. Outside the room, Ying Ce watches the scene through the small window, his expression unreadable as he stands silently in the shadows. A steaming spoonful of nourishment is carefully lifted toward the patient. Cheng Zeu gently feeds the recovering Lingdi while the night moon glows outside. Suddenly, Ying Ce storms in, slamming them for acting out a cheesy drama. Cheng stands his ground, reminding the intruder that quiet is essential for recovery. Ying Ce lunges forward, demanding respect for his hidden authority. Unfazed, Cheng dismisses him as nothing more than a reckless fool. Infuriated, Ying Ce seizes Cheng's collar to deliver a physical lesson. Lingdi finally snaps, ordering both disruptive men to leave her room immediately. The rivals find themselves unceremoniously booted into the sterile hospital corridor. They stand in the hall, the air thick with unresolved animosity. Ying Ce lingers at the door, his gaze fixed back on the room. He warns Cheng to stay away, only to be met with a cold challenge. Their reflection in the glass reveals a simmering, silent showdown. Through the pain, they see Lingdi finally finding a moment of peace. Ying Ce issues a final, stern ultimatum against any future visits. bracelets. Cheng offers a mocking smile, completely unmoved by the intimidation. He waves a casual hand as he retreats down the hallway. Ying Ce watches him go, his eyes narrowed with growing suspicion. Several days pass at the hospital as recovery concludes. Lingdi diligently packs her belongings into a small suitcase. Ying Ce arrives with roses, mocking her eagerness to leave. She bluntly states she has no time to waste on him. Her internal clock screams as the mission deadline nears. She accepts the flowers with a rare, flustered expression. The unexpected gesture leaves her momentarily shocked. The pair moves to the parking garage to depart. Lingdi buckles up as Ying Ce takes the driver's seat. He tells her to simply sit back and relax during transport. Their car speeds through the gate and onto the street. They arrive at a high-rise building for their next stop. Exhausted, Lingdi falls into a deep sleep during the ride. Ying Ce observes her peaceful state with a slight smile. He reaches out to gently adjust a stray lock of hair. He leans closer to inspect her while she rests quietly. Lingdi's eyes snap open with sudden, sharp intensity. She violently pushes him back, shouting in surprise. Ying Ce winces, clutching his head after the rough rejection. Lingdi approaches her front door, confused by the unexpected greeting waiting for her. Her neighbor, Cheng Ce, stands there with a bright smile, holding a bouquet of flowers and a bag of food. Lingdi politely accepts the gift, expressing her gratitude for the sweet gesture while Ying Ce watches from the shadows. Ying Ce's temper flares as he realizes this neighbor is back to disrupt his plans. He steps forward to confront the man, demanding to know why he's ignored previous warnings to stay away. Lingdi quickly interjects to clear the air, explaining that their relationship is strictly based on being neighbors. Ying Ce isn't buying the excuse, growing increasingly suspicious of how close these two actually live to one another. Lingdi tries to shut down the nonsense, but she notices Ying Ce has arrived with several large suitcases in tow. Without a hint of hesitation, Ying Ce demands she open the door to her apartment immediately. His expression remains intensely focused, masking the calculated move he's about to make. He declares that as the company president, it is his professional duty to move in and ensure her safety around the clock. Lingdi is left speechless, her face flushing with disbelief at such an audacious demand. Cheng Ce attempts to step in and stop the pushy behavior, placing a hand on the boss's shoulder. Ying Ce shoots him a chilling look that signals exactly who is in charge of this situation. Ignoring the protests, Ying Ce begins hauling his heavy luggage toward the entrance. The quiet hallway becomes the stage for a high-stakes standoff between the three. He reiterates his stance, making it clear that his presence in her home is a non-negotiable security measure. Ying Ce strides confidently into the living space, claiming his new territory without waiting for permission. Lingdi can only stare in pure shock, completely blindsided by her boss's sudden and extreme executive decision. Lingdi grabs Ying Ce's arm with a desperate grip, warning him not to dare peek behind him. She pushes the president back, leaving him bewildered as he asks if she's simply trying to change her clothes in private. Ying Ce's imagination runs wild with a silly, feline-themed scenario, causing a smug grin to break his stoic mask. Lingdi shifts into high gear, frantically tidying the room and sweeping away every speck of dust in a blur of motion. Finally finished, she takes a seat on the sofa with a glass of water and gives him the all-clear to turn around. Ying Ce turns back in total confusion, realizing she didn't even change her outfit. With a sharp smile, Lingdi thanks him for the ride but firmly insists he leave her home immediately. Ying Ce closes the distance, arguing that her role as an assistant requires constant professional availability. Lingdi's patience snaps as she reminds him their bond is purely business, and he has no right to sabotage her social life. The president's expression darkens with irritation, offended by the suggestion that he's overstepping his bounds. Lingdi stands her ground, calling out his blatant hostility toward her friend and his refusal to respect her boundaries. Even when he offers to triple her salary for 24-hour service, she flatly refuses to trade her private life for a paycheck. Frustrated and defeated, Ying Ce snaps that he'll give her the space she wants and storms toward the exit. The heavy front door slams shut with a thunderous bang, echoing throughout the now quiet apartment. Lingdi lets out a weary sigh, convinced that her boss has truly lost his mind this time. Outside, Ying Ce fumes with jealousy as he passes the neighbor watering flowers. Unable to believe he was just kicked out, he marches toward his luxury car in a huff, leaving a stunned Cheng Ce watching from the garden. Cheng Ce watches the fallout with a cold, knowing smirk. Night falls over the city's vibrant entertainment district. Inside a loud club, the crowd cheers for the center stage performer. Ying Ce ignores his companion's plea to stop drinking and continues his self-destruction. He pours another glass with a desperate demand for more. His friend watches in shock, never having seen the king this broken. Back home, Lingdi dries off after a shower, her mind racing with regret. She checks her phone, torn between her pride and the urge to fix things. At the bar, a delirious Ying Ce can only mutter one name: Zero. He suddenly gasps in pain, clutching his chest as his friend panics. His companion tears open his shirt, revealing glowing, jagged scars across his chest. The red-haired man reels at the sight of such devastating, unhealed wounds. Ying Ce's vision blurs as he whispers a final apology to Zero. He passes out cold, leaving his friend baffled by the identity of this mysterious Zero. Determined to help, the friend searches for any clues on his phone. He scrolls through the contact list until he finds the name Zero saved at the top. Silence settles over Lingdi's apartment complex as the night deepens. Lingdi stares at the ceiling, unable to shake the image of Ying Ce storming away. Lingdi grits her teeth in frustration, cursing her own heart for worrying about the very target she's meant to eliminate. Suddenly, her phone erupts into a loud ringtone, displaying an incoming call from the president. She picks up immediately, her voice steady as she asks what business requires her attention at this hour. Her eyes widen in pure disbelief as the voice on the other end delivers a piece of news that stops her heart. Under the cold glow of the city lights, the grand facade of the club looms, hiding the chaos unfolding within. Inside, Ying Ce is recklessly drowning his sorrows in alcohol while his red-haired ally desperately tries to pry the bottle away from him. Lingdi bursts through the doors, her breath hitching as she urgently calls out for the president to explain the situation. The red-haired man looks up with a grim expression, admitting that he was the one who summoned her, because he can no longer handle the spiraling king. Ying Ce slumps against the seat, his gaze glazed over and his composure completely shattered by the weight of his actions. Lingdi remains skeptical, questioning why she was brought here specifically just to deal with a man who appears to simply be drunk. Without a word, the friend pulls back Ying Ce's shirt to reveal a series of jagged, glowing red scars carved deep into his chest. The sight leaves Lingdi breathless as she realizes these aren't just scratches, he is dangerously wounded. The red-haired man fixes her with a piercing stare, demanding to know if she has any idea how he sustained such brutal damage. He explains that Ying Ce foolishly raided the Infinite Territory to retrieve Cyan Jade, a legendary treasure capable of curing deadly zombie toxins. He points a finger toward the truth, stating that Ying Ce clearly went through that hellish mission to save someone who had been infected. The realization hits Lingdi like a physical blow as she recalls her own mysterious recovery from a fatal zombie scratch. A wave of guilt washes over her as she finally understands that he put his own life on the line just to keep her alive. She begs to rush him to the emergency room, but her ally stops her, handing over a jar of specialized medicine as the only way to treat such mystical wounds. Lingdi looks toward her red-haired ally with a look of deep gratitude as she prepares to take full responsibility for the unconscious Ying Ce. Under the cover of night, the two women carefully support Ying Ce's weight as they navigate the quiet streets outside the lounge. The red-haired friend officially entrusts the king's recovery to the assassin, who promises to handle the medical situation with professional care. The lights of the massive apartment complex glow against the dark sky as the scene shifts to a more private setting for his treatment. Lingdi grunts under the sheer physical strain of hauling the heavy, unconscious man through the narrow doorway of the residence. After successfully placing him on the bed, she reflects on the irony of returning to the very place she previously tried to escape. She gazes down at her target in the dim light, her mind racing with the weight of the secrets she has just uncovered. The gravity of his condition hits her, realizing that his current path will surely lead to a fatal outcome if his health isn't prioritized. Lingdi realizes that with Ying Ce completely incapacitated, she now has the perfect tactical opening to fulfill her original assassination mission. Her internal conflict deepens as she looks at the medicine in her hand, her resolve to strike finally beginning to waver. She vividly recalls the revelation that Ying Ce's devastating injuries were the direct result of a selfless mission to save her life. Kneeling beside him, she prepares to conduct a thorough medical examination of the mystical damage sustained during his raid. A close inspection reveals the brutal, glowing scars etched across his chest, a permanent testament to the price he paid for the cure. Lingdi is overcome with a wave of guilt, wondering why he would risk everything for an enemy who intended to take his life. Her focus is suddenly shattered when Ying Ce's eyes snap open, his hand bolting upward to lock firmly onto her wrist. Despite his weakened state, he maintains a sharp gaze and questions her intentions, asking if she was planning to abandon her post. The silence is suddenly shattered as a phone begins to vibrate violently against the furniture. Seizing the sudden distraction, Lingdi forcefully shoves Ying Ce back to create some much-needed distance between them. She makes a hasty retreat across the room, quickly snatching up the device to put an end to the noise. The screen glows brightly, displaying an urgent incoming call from a business associate known as President Zhang. Lingdi looks back with a serious expression, urging Ying Ce to take the call as it likely concerns a vital professional matter. Ying Ce takes the device and adopts a cold, professional demeanor, demanding to know the reason for the interruption. His brow furrows as he receives the grim news that a rival bidder has unexpectedly hijacked their major resort project. Refusing to lose the deal, he immediately barks out orders to contact President Qian and reclaim their position. As the high-stakes business negotiations continue, the minutes begin to tick away on the wall clock. Nearly half an hour passes with Ying Ce still fully immersed in resolving the corporate crisis. Lingdi sits nearby, but the exhaustion from the day's tension finally begins to weigh heavily on her. Ying Ce finally prepares to end the call, insisting that they finalize the remaining details during an in-person meeting. When he finally turns away from his work, he is surprised to find that Zero has drifted off right where she was sitting. He leans in with a rare moment of quiet observation, playfully whispering that she is nothing but a lazy pig. With careful precision, He lifts her up to move her into a more comfortable position for the night. Lingdi remains completely oblivious, lost in a deep and peaceful slumber. When the morning light finally hits the room, she sits up and lets out a wide, groggy yawn. She is greeted by the rhythmic sound of a spatula hitting a pan as Ying Ce focuses on frying up a fresh breakfast. Lingdi wanders into the dining area, looking completely stunned by the domestic scene unfolding in front of her. Ying Ce looks up from his cooking with a calm expression, telling her she arrived just in time to eat. Lingdi watches Ying Ce across the breakfast table, realizing with a sinking feeling that he has no intention of leaving her apartment anytime soon. Ying Ce gracefully dabs his mouth with a napkin, reminding her that a breakfast handcrafted by a billionaire CEO is a luxury few ever experience. He leans forward with a piece of food on his fork, asking if she needs him to personally feed her. Lingdi's face flushes with a mix of embarrassment and defiance as she grabs her own utensil, insisting she can manage on her own. Unbothered by the rejection, Ying Ce calmly continues his meal, stating that since they will be together every day from now on, there will be plenty of chances for her to adjust. The weight of his declaration hits Lingdi hard, causing her to swallow nervously as she considers her future with the CEO. When she questions if he's actually moving in, Ying Ce reveals he spent the night making extensive preparations while she was asleep. He starts by showing off a pair of limited edition designer sandals, claiming they are one of only 200 pairs in existence. He then gestures toward her closet, which is now filled with his custom-tailored suits air-freighted directly from Italy. He even displays his high-end skincare collection, noting that this is only a small portion of what is yet to arrive. Leaning in close, he suggests that if her apartment is getting too crowded, she should simply move into his massive estate instead. Lingdi immediately places a hand on his chest to push him back, maintaining a strictly professional boundary between them. Suddenly checking the time, Lingdi panics and rushes for the door, terrified of being penalized for arriving late to her job. Ying Ce stops her in her tracks with a smug grin, dangling his car keys and asking why she's worried about being late when she's with the president. Soon, they arrive at the towering corporate headquarters that serves as the heart of Ying Ce's business empire. As they enter, the staff lines the red carpet and bows in unison, welcoming the president and his mysterious companion. The office erupts in hushed gossip as coworkers struggle to reconcile the beautiful woman before them with the colleague they once knew. Elsewhere in the building, an employee finishes her routine tasks at the copier, unaware of any looming danger. A strange, muffled sound catches her ear, causing her to pause and look around the quiet hallway in confusion. She approaches a glass partition, seeing the faint reflection of someone desperately pleading for help from the other side. Terror suddenly grips her as a dark, looming shadow overtakes her, leaving her screaming for someone to save her. A desperate spirit pleads to borrow a physical vessel to enact her plan. A ghostly figure shows mercy, citing a past debt before vanishing into the light. The woman stands alone in the hallway, processing the rejection of her true name. Her eyes ignite with a sinister red light as she assumes a new identity. The possessed lady walks out, drawing immediate concern from the nearby staff. She coldly brushes past them, demanding they clear her path immediately. Her coworkers trade confused glances at her sudden and hostile change in attitude. Lingdi enters the office while the imposter watches her with an intense gaze. The staff gapes at Lingdi, stunned by her elegant and feminine professional look. Lingdi stays focused, explaining her style is strictly for her official duties. The imposter suggests a group meal to properly integrate the newcomer. The colleagues cheer at the exciting prospect of trying a new restaurant. She agrees to book the table for their social gathering after work. The team celebrates the plan, completely unaware of the lurking danger. A sinister red glow returns to her eyes as the group walks away. The scene shifts to a secluded villa, where the shadows of a hidden conspiracy begin to stir under the bright afternoon sun. Deep within the inner sanctum, a mysterious figure seated on a plush sofa demands immediate update on the operative known as Zero. With a cold, calculated smirk, the masked leader compares his target to a stray pigeon that has forgotten its way home, ordering her immediate retrieval for questioning. His loyal subordinates acknowledge the command with a sharp, unified shout of compliance, ready to execute their mission. Back at the corporate headquarters, the atmosphere in the lounge remains deceptively quiet despite the brewing storm. A staff member leans in close, whispering hushed rumors about a massive resort project that might be facing a sudden, forced shutdown. Her colleague is blindsided by the news, unable to believe that construction is being halted just as the work was ready to commence. The conversation grows more intense as she reveals that a secret rival has sabotaged the company with a suspiciously high bid. The weight of the situation sinks in, as the male employee realizes the potential financial losses for the firm will be absolutely devastating. Nearby, Lingdi sits at her desk, appearing deep in thought as she processes the mounting corporate tension surrounding her. An assistant stands before the CEO's desk, diligently reciting a packed schedule of high-stakes video conferences and contract signings for the afternoon. In a sudden move to halt the briefing, a hand reaches out to firmly grasp her sleeve to command her total focus. The CEO pulls her toward him with startling intensity, causing her to cry out in shock as the professional atmosphere is shattered by his sudden movement. Important documents scatter across the office floor, fluttering through the air like falling leaves in the wake of the chaotic encounter. The ambitious employee steps forward, boldly requesting to take charge of the resort project. Ying Ce eyes her skeptically, questioning her capability and the heavy stakes involved. Leaning back, the CEO demands to know what she expects in return for her success. He acknowledges her request for a director role, but warns that the path ahead is grueling. She doubles down on her confidence, declaring she'll resign immediately if she fails. A calculating smirk crosses her face as she plots to secure more than just a promotion. Elsewhere, Ling Ce marches through the hallway, frustrated by the trivial errands Ying Ce assigned her. She stops in her tracks, catching a glimpse of a suspicious figure in the reflection. Her instincts flare as she confirms a man in a suit is tailing her every move. The stalker pauses in confusion, realizing he has completely lost sight of his target. Ling Ce strikes from the shadows, landing a devastating kick that sends the man reeling. She pins him down with a blade, ignoring his desperate claim of being a talent scout. To prove his innocence, the man trembles as he pulls out a professional business card. The card identifies him as Wang Long, a scout looking for new talent. Unimpressed, Ling Ce lowers her weapon and warns the man to stay out of her sight. As she turns to leave, the man makes a subtle, suspicious movement toward her. Suddenly, a wave of debilitating energy washes over her, catching her completely off guard. The scout drops his act, revealing the trap worked as he orders his men to secure her. Ling Ce falls unconscious, brought before the mysterious leader to face an uncertain fate. Ling Ce slowly opens her eyes, her mind afog as she tries to piece together where she's been taken. Her heart drops as she looks up to see her boss sitting calmly before her, his presence radiating an icy authority. The boss leans forward, his voice dripping with cold disappointment over her recent failures. He firmly tilts her face upward, demanding to know why his top assassin hasn't eliminated Ying Ce yet. Meanwhile, the silence in the vacant office grows heavy as the hours tick by without a word. Ying Ce checks his watch with growing anxiety, wondering why Zero hasn't checked in. He stares at his phone in disbelief as the automated message informs him that her number is completely unavailable. Back in the hideout, the boss smirks with dark curiosity at the impossible claim that their target is actually an immortal zombie. Ling Ce insists that she's tried every method to kill him, only to discover his supernatural secret. She watches her superior's calculated expression, fearing that this meeting will be her last. Desperation takes over as she begs him to believe the truth about Ying Ce's condition. A nearby subordinate scoffs at her report, mocking the idea that anyone would fall for such a ridiculous story. The boss immediately snaps at the interruption, ordering his subordinate to leave the room at once. He reaches down and pulls Ling Ce back to her feet, his demeanor shifting to a more focused, professional tone. As they stand close, Ling Ce is momentarily distracted by a scent that feels strangely familiar. Turning his back to her, the boss assigns her a new objective: return to Ying Ce and uncover the technical weaknesses of a zombie. Ling Ce looks up in shock, barely able to believe that she's being granted a second chance. He confirms her mission is back on, provided she maintains a strict line of communication regarding the target. Despite the reprieve, she remains suspicious of his sudden leniency. Knowing his reputation for being merciless, the boss dismisses her, warning that any further delay will only make the zombie king suspicious of her absence. The search begins at a quiet, sun-drenched cafe on the edge of town, where the trail has gone cold. Inside, the tables are deserted, offering no immediate clues as to where Ling Ce might have vanished. The waitress can only offer a vague lead, informing a desperate Ying Ce that the woman he's looking for left shortly after finishing her coffee. Frustration boils over as he returns to his car, gripping the steering wheel while his mind races with worst-case scenarios. He tries her number one more time, but the cold, automated recording confirms that she remains completely unreachable. Just as hope begins to fade, his sharp eyes catch a familiar silhouette walking aimlessly along the sidewalk. Ling Ce is lost in her own world, deeply suspicious of why the boss would grant her such uncharacteristic leniency. The silence of the street is shattered by the high-pitched screech of tires as a silver car swerves toward the curb. Before she can even process the sound, a powerful hand clamps down on her arm, cutting off any chance of flight. She spins around in shock, gasping as she finds herself face-to-face with a visibly agitated Ying Ce. His gaze is piercing as he demands to know exactly where she has been hiding all this time. Maintaining a strictly professional focus on her duties, he lectures her on the gross misconduct of being uncontactable during business hours. Ling Ce can only look down in silence, offering a quiet apology for her sudden and unexplained disappearance. He doesn't want to hear excuses, firmly taking her by the arm and ordering her to follow him back home immediately. High above the bustling streets, the afternoon sun glints off the glass of the city's towering skyscrapers. Back at the office, a concerned coworker stares at her phone, still unable to get a signal from Ling Ce. The rest of the team is growing restless, frustrated that the guest of honor for their planned celebration has gone missing. One colleague tries to keep the peace, insisting that Ling Ce is too reliable a person to just ditch them without a reason. Despite the reassurance, the group is still unsatisfied with the idea of just heading home and ending the night. Suddenly, a bold idea strikes. They decide to buy snacks and drinks to take the party directly to Ling Ce's house. The office crew erupts in cheers, completely unaware of the tense situation they are about to interrupt. Meanwhile, in a secluded location, the atmosphere is much more sinister as a secret meeting unfolds. A confused employee questions the boss, unable to understand why he would let his primary target walk away so easily. The boss leans back with a calculated smirk, explaining that he is simply loosening the line and waiting for the big fish to bite. The scene opens in a sterile, silent room where a heavy secret is about to be shared. A dying mentor reminds a young boy that in their world, a killer's heart must remain colder than ice. With a trembling hand, the boy reaches out as he's told that escaping death requires finding the path to eternal life. Bewildered by the cryptic instruction, the child seeks an answer to this impossible riddle. A terrifying shadow looms over the bed as the truth is revealed. Immortality is a power reserved only for the undead. Years later, the boss stares ahead with cold resolve, vowing that the moment he unlocks the secret to eternal life will be the day Ying Ce finally meets his end. Back at the apartment, the tension in the kitchen is thick enough to cut with a knife. Ying Ce demands to know where Lingdi disappeared to during the afternoon, his voice laced with an unspoken worry. When she offers to take a pay cut as an apology, he can only massage his temples in frustration at her lack of awareness regarding his concern. He finally takes a seat, deciding to drop the matter as long as she remains strictly by his side from now on. Looking exhausted from his search, he orders her to prepare a meal to compensate for his long day. Lingdi can hardly believe her ears, pointing at herself in total disbelief. Ying Ce maintains his professional stance as her superior, prompting her to give him a cryptic warning as she accepts the task. Donning an apron, Lingdi begins her culinary mission, while struggling to decode her boss's shifting motives. Smoke begins to billow from the pan as the heat intensifies on the single piece of meat. A strange, acrid scent fills the kitchen, catching her off guard. Her eyes widen in horror as she realizes the dinner is rapidly turning into charcoal. She stares down at the blackened remains, lamenting the loss of the very last steak in the kitchen. With a nervous gulp, she presents the finished product to the awaiting CEO. The plate holds a piece of meat that has been scorched into a solid, inedible block of carbon. Ying Ce stares at the culinary disaster, his expression a mix of shock and utter confusion. Lingdi quickly defends herself, insisting that her talents lie in professional fields rather than in the kitchen. Instead of being angry, Ying Ce finds a strange comfort in her failure, realizing some things about her never change. A memory flickers to life as a mysterious figure asks why Ying Ce is in such a vulnerable, helpless state. Looking defeated, the golden-haired youth explains that his father's bias has left him cast out and alone. The young woman gazes at him with a look of pure empathy and warmth. She gently takes his hand, insisting that he must be hungry and needs to come inside. The peaceful atmosphere of the traditional home offers a brief sanctuary from the world outside. Once inside, she urges him to take a seat so he can finally have a proper meal. With a proud smile, she presents her special roasted chicken, though the results are less than gourmet. Staring at the blackened bird, she sheepishly admits that cooking definitely isn't her strongest skill. In the present, Ying Ce firmly takes Lingdi's hand, pulling her back to reality. He decides they're heading out for a real meal, refusing to let her suffer through her own cooking. Their exit is abruptly cut short by the sharp ring of the doorbell echoing through the hall. Lingdi's heart sinks as she checks the security feed to see who could be visiting so late. To her horror, the monitor reveals a crowd of her coworkers standing right outside her doorstep. She suddenly remembers the office gathering she stood up, realizing they've come looking for her. Panic sets in as she realizes the massive trouble she's in if they catch her at home while ignoring her phone. Outside, the team grows suspicious, certain they heard movement coming from within the apartment. Ying Ce nonchalantly suggests letting them in and hiring Michelin-starred chefs to turn the night into a party. Lingdi desperately hushes him, terrified of the professional fallout of being found alone with the CEO. He offers to solve the problem by declaring their relationship, but his casual tone only adds to her stress. She tries to make him understand that she's the one who will face the office gossip and harsh judgment. Deciding on a different tactic, Ying Ce reaches out to cut the power to the room. He advises her that if she won't face them, she needs to stay silent and pretend no one is home. With a final click, the apartment is plunged into total darkness to hide their presence. The coworkers outside feel insulted, convinced that Lingdi is deliberately shunning their company. A rival coworker smirks, already imagining the social damage this will cause at the office tomorrow. She suggests one final test, pulling out her phone to call Lingdi directly to catch her in the lie. Inside the pitch-black room, Lingdi's phone suddenly screams to life, the bright screen betraying her position. The group stands waiting in the hall, their patience wearing thin as the phone continues to ring through the door. The coworkers are floored as they come face to face with the same man who took Zero away during their last encounter. One of the women stares in disbelief, her mind racing with questions about why he is even at this location. Hiding inside, Lingdi watches the confrontation through the monitor, baffled by Cheng Zayu's sudden appearance. Cheng Zayu remains ice-cold, questioning the group about why they are loitering at his front door. The blonde man grinds his teeth in frustration, clearly losing his patience with the unexpected interruption. The coworkers refuse to back down, insisting they heard a phone ringing and suspicious voices coming from the apartment. A wave of panic washes over Lingdi as she realizes her entire professional reputation is hanging by a thread. Thinking fast, Cheng Zayu claims he was simply calling his younger brother, who is currently home alone. The pink-haired woman is visibly shaken, certain that her records confirmed this was Zero's personal address. She begins to suspect something more scandalous, wondering if the two are keeping a secret relationship from the office. The atmosphere shifts to excitement as the colleagues start gossiping about a potential boyfriend reveal. Chang Zeu counters with a clever lie, suggesting the previous tenant must have been the Zero they are looking for. To sell the act, he reaches for the doorbell and calls out to his supposed brother. The group waits in tense silence, listening to the chime echo through the hallway as they wait for a response. Inside, Lingdi desperately begs for a favor, while her companion remains reluctant to play along with the charade. Outside, the man in glasses demands that the door be opened so they can verify the truth for themselves. The blue-haired woman agrees, pushing for visual proof rather than just taking a stranger's word for it. Suddenly, a muffled voice from within yells back that they are busy watching television and don't want to be disturbed. The pink-haired woman stands corrected and embarrassed as her suspicions are seemingly debunked. Lingdi can't help but let out a muffled giggle as the ridiculous plan actually starts working. Seizing the moment, Chang Zhou firmly orders the group to respect his privacy and leave the premises immediately. Defeated and confused, the coworkers finally turn around and head back toward the elevator. Just as the coast clears, a hand reaches out from the shadows to pull Chang Zhou toward the doorway. He looks back with a start, caught off guard by the sudden movement from within the room. Once the door is safely shut, the group reflects on the narrow escape, knowing they were just inches away from a total disaster. The stranger offers a polite smile, claiming he only stopped by to help with the door. Ying Ce glares back, convinced the man is actually a spy lurking in the hallway. Lingdi steps between them to prevent the situation from escalating into a fight. Frustrated, Ying Ce pulls out money and demands a price for the man to leave. Lingdi ignores the bribe and pushes the neighbor out, thanking him for his help. Ying Ce questions her motives, wondering why she dismissed the intruder so quickly. Lingdi immediately shuts him down with a swift, punishing strike to the head. As Ying Ce collapses, she finally enjoys a moment of peace and quiet. The morning sun shines brightly against the glass of a massive corporate skyscraper. Lan Yonger arrives at the high-end venue, prepared for a difficult business meeting. A hand reaches down to pick up a chilled glass of ice water. President Qian takes a sip, expressing his reluctance to sell such a prime location. He turns his head toward the door, acknowledging the arrival of the negotiator. Yonger introduces herself as the representative from Ying's group for the acquisition. Qian lowers his sunglasses, clearly impressed by her professional and polished appearance. He sets a firm boundary, stating he won't accept a penny less than 14 billion. Yonger remains calm, explaining that she cannot return to her office empty-handed. Qian reminds her that many other powerful companies are vying for this hotel. She sits back confidently, asserting that her offer is the most sincere on the table. A hand reaches across the desk to emphasize a point during the negotiation. Qian reacts with a look of surprise at her bold and direct business tactics. He challenges her to prove exactly how far she will go to secure the deal. Yonger offers a determined smirk, ready to finalize the corporate takeover. The high-stakes negotiation moves behind closed doors as the pair enters Suite Tanzania 8. President Qian maintains a mask of professional hospitality, ushering Lan Yonger into the room with a polite gesture. Lan Yonger remains perfectly composed, sipping her wine even as Qian attempts to assert dominance over the terms of their business cooperation. Suddenly, a mysterious light flashes in Yonger's eyes, signaling a sharp shift in the power dynamic. The atmosphere turns eerie as President Qian's expression goes completely blank, his mind falling under a strange influence. With the businessman now fully dazed, Yonger pulls out the final paperwork to conclude their deal. She issues a cold, direct command for the president to sign and stamp the agreement without hesitation. The document is revealed to be a total acquisition contract for the prestigious Blue Ocean Resort. Lost in a trance-like state, Qian simply agrees to the life-changing terms with a mindless smile. Much later, the fog in his mind finally clears as he stares down at the finalized paperwork in his hands. Reality hits like a freight train when he sees his own signature, realizing he has been completely outplayed. Consumed by a sudden outburst of fury, Qian rips the contract to shreds while his assistant watches in shock. He slams his hand down in a blind rage, demanding a car so he can confront Ying's group immediately. A brief flashback reveals Yonger watching with clinical precision as her puppet president signed his assets away. She offers a chilling bit of praise, satisfied that the corporate takeover is finally secured. With a sharp command, she triggers a hypnotic suggestion for him to fall into a deep, immediate slumber. Yonger exits the room without a backward glance, leaving the unconscious president behind. Hours later, Qian finally stirs, waking up with a disoriented expression and no memory of the transaction. His assistant rushes in to report the devastating financial loss, but the president is left completely baffled by the news of his own actions. Ying Ce reviews the documents, commending the acquisition of the resort at an unbelievably low price. Yonger looks on with a soft smile, eager to collect the reward she was promised for her success. Ying Ce maintains a professional gaze, asking which specific promotion she has in mind for her efforts. She pauses to consider her options, realizing this is her chance to climb the corporate ladder. Suddenly, the office doors fly open as President Qian barges in, brushing past the staff trying to restrain him. Younger's heart sinks as she wonders how the man managed to recover and find his way here so quickly. Fuming with rage, Qian screams at Ying Ce, accusing him of being a deceptive fox who tricked him out of his property. The surrounding staff begin to whisper, curious about the suspicious circumstances surrounding the cheap contract. Ying Ce remains unfazed, coolly questioning when exactly any trickery took place during their official business negotiation. Qian shifts his fury toward Yonger, pointing a trembling finger and claiming she is the one responsible for the deception. A manager tries to clear the area, ordering the onlookers to return to their desks and ignore the chaos. In a fit of desperation, Qian shoves Yonger, accusing her of using underhanded tactics to trap him before he could turn back. Yonger holds her ground, calmly reminding him that he signed the contract of his own free will during their late-night professional meeting. Watching the intense confrontation from the sidelines, an employee laments the dark and ruthless nature of high-stakes business. Qian shouts back in denial, frantically claiming that he never touched the documents or agreed to the terms. Yonger questions if the alcohol he consumed during their meeting clouded his memory, and even suggests involving the police to settle the dispute. Seeing the situation escalate, Ying Ce steps forward with an icy authority that demands immediate silence. He declares the contract fully effective and warns Qian that he will not tolerate anyone bullying his staff members. Qian stares back in absolute shock, realizing he has been completely outmaneuvered by Ying Ce's cold resolve. With the conflict settled, Ying Ce turns his back on the disgraced president, signaling that the matter is permanently closed. Ying Ce coldly orders the entire room to clear out immediately. The confused staff files into the hallway, whispering about the sudden expulsion. Lingdi halts Younger's exit, demanding they speak privately in the tea room. Inside, Lingdi stares down Younger, demanding the truth about the recent events. Younger casually sips tea, claiming President Qian simply tried to retract a legal agreement. Lingdi isn't buying the act and sternly demands her colleagues stop lying. She argues that the suspiciously low resort price makes Younger's professional methods highly questionable. Younger scoffs, claiming the result is all that matters despite Lingdi's rigid ethics. Lingdi exits the tea room, leaving a tense, unresolved silence behind her. The gossiping office staff immediately corners Zero, fishing for scandalous details on the deal. One coworker begs for the inside scoop, promising to keep any secrets quiet. They lean in close, desperate to know how Younger secured the contract. Lingdi approaches the huddle with a stern, intimidating stride. She cuts through the chatter, her intense gaze silencing the group's speculation. Elsewhere, a disgraced President Qian seethes in his car, vowing revenge. His phone suddenly vibrates with an incoming call, breaking his angry trance. He answers tentatively, unsure who would contact him after his public defeat. Qian's face pales in terror as he recognizes the voice on the line. A mysterious figure demands the billions he still owes, now that his assets are gone. Sweating and desperate, President Qian begs the mysterious caller for more time to gather the massive sum of money. A sinister voice on the other end delivers a chilling ultimatum, threatening to take Qian's life if the debt isn't settled immediately. The line goes dead, leaving the bankrupt former owner staring at his phone in a state of absolute paralysis. Nearby, Ying Ce and Lingdi drive through the resort, focused on their professional duties until the peace is shattered. Lingdi's eyes widen as she spots something horrific through the window, shouting for Ying Ce to stop the car. A maddened Qian has cornered a female employee, screaming that since he's lost everything, he's taking her down with him. The terrified woman stands frozen, unable to escape the frantic man's iron grip. Ying Ce immediately leaps into action, shouting a commanding order to halt the chaos. Seeing her boss, the captive staff member cries out for help as her situation grows increasingly dire. Qian ignores the plea, dragging the girl toward the rooftop while challenging anyone to follow if they want to save her. Horrified by the sudden turn to violence, the girl gasps, asking the man if he has completely lost his mind. Driven by pure mania, Qian snaps that he was forced into this corner and has nothing left to lose. Ying Ce leads the pursuit, his face set in a mask of grim determination. Lingdi follows at his heels as they navigate the stairs to reach the scene of the crime. They burst onto the rooftop to find the hostage situation at its breaking point near the ledge. Ying Ce tries to maintain a calm authority, urging the man to discuss his problems instead of hurting an innocent staff member. Qian's face twists in rage as he declares that there is no room for discussion when he's been pushed into a dead end. Lingdi watches the volatile movements of the pair, warning everyone that the slightest mistake could be fatal. Ying Ce keeps his focus sharp, offering to chat about any grievance if it means ensuring the woman's safety. The tension turns lethal when Qian brandishes a knife, while the weeping assistant begs for her life. Lingdi steps forward with a cold, professional tone, demanding to hear his conditions for a peaceful resolution. Qian barks back, demanding to know who she is and ordering the outsider to stay away. Ying Ce shuts down the distraction, stating that everyone present is involved and demanding to know what Qian wants. Qian delivers his final threat: cancel the resort contract immediately, or he will jump with the girl and destroy the company's reputation forever. Ying Ce stares down the desperate man, reminding him that the resort acquisition is already public knowledge, and canceling the deal won't solve his mounting debts. Driven to the edge by his financial ruin, Qian screams that he never signed the contract and threatens to drag the hostage into the afterlife with him. The razor-sharp blade presses dangerously close to the girl's neck as the situation reaches a lethal breaking point. Paralyzed by fear, the young employee begs her boss to save her from the cold steel at her throat. Ying Ce maintains a calm, authoritative gaze as he promises the terrified hostage that he won't let anything happen to her. Lingdi steps forward to support her CEO, who offers to fulfill Qian's demands as long as the hostage is released immediately. The two stand united against the frantic man, ready to resolve the crisis with professional precision. Lingdi presents the physical contract folder, proving they are prepared to negotiate on his terms. Qian's face contorts with rage as he demands they destroy the document that symbolizes his downfall. Ying Ce counters with a cold, logical warning, explaining that if the contract is voided, Qian will be left with nothing but criminal charges and no buyers. Lingdi adds weight to the ultimatum, reminding the man that cooperating is his only chance to stay out of a prison cell. The pressure begins to crack Qian's resolve as he considers the possibility of a way out that doesn't end in blood. Sensing the shift in momentum, Ying Ce asks the man if he is finally ready to lower his weapon and discuss the terms calmly. Qian reluctantly agrees to trust them one last time, slowly pulling the knife away from the girl's throat. A steady hand reaches out to guide the trembling girl towards safety as she is finally released from her captor's grip. Just as the tension breaks, the girl's eyes snap open in horror at a sudden, unseen danger that triggers a desperate warning. Just as the situation reaches its breaking point, a hand reaches out in a desperate attempt to maintain control. The woman's eyes widen in sheer terror as she realizes the ground is no longer beneath her feet. Distraught and terrified, the man screams out the name, Zero, as he watches the disaster unfold. Gravity takes hold, pulling her backward over the ledge as her hands grasp at the empty air. From the ground below, witnesses can only watch in stunned silence as the tragedy plays out above them. She plummets through the night sky, a ghostly afterimage trailing behind her as she falls toward the abyss. The man's gaze sharpens with a piercing intensity, his eyes filled with a desperate, singular need to save her. He pushes his body to the absolute limit, lunging toward the edge in a final, frantic effort to catch her. Their fingertips brush against each other in a heart-stopping moment where every millisecond counts. She looks up at him with a fragile mix of hope and the crushing fear of the end. In his mind, the trauma of the past resurfaces as he vows that he won't let her slip away a second time. Suddenly, a memory from a different life flashes forward, showing a fierce clash of blades between ancient warriors. The weight of the weapon causes his hand to tremble, the strain of the combat reaching its peak. The golden-haired swordsman grits his teeth, realizing that this cycle of violence is bound to end in a fatal sacrifice. A spray of crimson erupts across his sleeve as a hidden strike finally finds its mark during the duel. Sensing the immediate danger, the woman calls out a frantic warning for Ying Ce to stay on his guard. He shifts his focus instantly, his eyes narrowing as he prepares to face the threat coming from his blind spot. An enemy lurks in the shadows behind him, closing in with a blade aimed directly at his back. Acting on instinct, the woman prepares her own counterattack, ready to protect her companion at any cost. For a brief moment, the two stand side by side in a calm before the storm, bound by an ancient and unspoken duty. The peace is shattered as she gasps in pain, the brutal reality of the battlefield finally catching up to her. A cold, ruthless gaze pierces through the chaos as the attacker declares that no traitor will be allowed to leave the field alive. The blonde warrior stands paralyzed as he gazes at Lingdi's past self, whose life is fading from a devastating chest wound. Desperate to stop the inevitable, he pulls her into his arms and begs her not to let go. He reaches out with a trembling hand, brushing her cheek as the light leaves her eyes. With her final breath, she offers a tragic smile and a promise that they will find each other again in another life. He refuses to accept this fate, declaring that he would trade all his power just to spend the rest of his days by her side. She softly chides him, reminding the warrior that a cold-blooded killer has no business losing his heart to love. He leans in close, mourning the silence as her body finally goes limp in his embrace. Under a sky fractured by lightning, his grief explodes into a shattered roar that echoes through the ages as he screams her name. Suddenly, the vision snaps back to the present as Ying Ce's hand clamps firmly onto Lingdi's wrist to keep her from plummeting off the skyscraper. Gritting his teeth against the weight, he shouts for her to give him her other hand before her grip slips. Lingdi gazes up in a daze, barely clinging to consciousness as she dangles precariously over the city streets. Down below, the unsuspecting public stops in their tracks, paralyzed by the sight of the unfolding drama high above. Panic spreads through the crowd as onlookers point toward the rooftop, certain they are witnessing someone about to fall. Nearby, a man sitting in his car notices the commotion and looks up, his instincts as a professional observer immediately kicking in. He wastes no time snatching his binoculars to get a crystal-clear view of the life-or-death struggle. He zooms in on the desperate rescue, framing the two figures against the midnight sky with technical precision. A predatory grin crosses his face as he realizes he has stumbled upon the perfect, high-stakes scoop for his career. He quickly pulls out his phone, ready to capture the evidence and turn this disaster into his biggest headline yet. Ying Ce stands firm, his suit jacket barely hiding the immense physical strain of the rescue. A dark crimson stain begins to bloom across his side, revealing a hidden injury that he desperately tries to ignore. Despite the searing pain, he looks Lingdi in the eye and promises that he will save her regardless of the cost. Lingdi gazes back at him, her eyes filled with a mix of terror and deep concern for her savior's well-being. From the shadows, Lan Yonger watches coldly, deciding that the zombie king is strong enough to handle this without her help. Nearby, a smartphone vibrates violently against the concrete, its screen lighting up with an urgent incoming call. The reporter's face pales as he looks down at the device, clearly terrified of the person calling him. He tentatively brings the phone to his ear, his voice trembling as he prepares to speak. On the other side of the line, a shadowy figure offers a sinister deal to wipe away the reporter's debts in exchange for his total cooperation. Back at the ledge, a desperate hand reaches out to secure a final grip, as their footing becomes dangerously unstable. Ying Ce exerts every ounce of his supernatural strength to haul Lingdi upward and back onto the rooftop. Suddenly, a fragmented memory of a past life flashes through Lingdi's mind, showing two figures in ancient, flowing robes. The man in the vision holds the woman with a gentleness that feels hauntingly familiar to her. But the beautiful dream turned to a nightmare as a cold blade pierces through her chest, shattering the piece of the memory. Lingdi snaps back to the present, wondering in a daze if these visions are a sign that her life is about to end. Seeing the reporter standing frozen, Ying Ce barks a command for him to move his feet and assist with the rescue. Galvanized by the shout, the reporter's shoes scuff against the roof as he finally sprints toward the edge. He rushes forward with a determined expression, setting aside his own fear to help pull the woman to safety. Working in tandem, the two men secure the ledge and ensure that Lingdi is no longer in danger of falling. Finally, the group stands on solid ground, the immediate crisis passing as Lan Yonger silently observes the aftermath of the harrowing rescue. Lan Yonger watches the unfolding drama with a critical gaze. The reporter desperately pleads with President Ying to overlook the chaos and proceed with the business deal. Ying Ce shuts him down instantly with a freezing command to back off. Turning his back, Ying Ce starts to lead Lingdi away from the scene. Driven to madness, the reporter lunges forward to attack Ying Ce's blind spot. A sharp blade gleams as it is thrust toward the target. Lan Yonger's eyes go wide as she screams a desperate warning. A hand moves with lightning speed to intercept the incoming weapon. Lan Yonger throws herself into the fray, demanding an immediate halt to the violence. She grips the attacker's arm, struggling to neutralize the threat. The reporter stares in shock, realizing the gravity of his failed assault. The knife falls from his hands and clangs against the pavement. Lan Yonger urges Ying Ce to escape while she handles the fallout. Ying Ce steps closer, determined to get her medical attention for her injuries. His expression darkens as he vows consequences if his companions suffer. Defeated, the reporter collapses onto the hard ground. He breaks down, crushed by the weight of his financial ruin and failures. Ying Ce maintains his focus, ushering Lingdi toward their transport. Watching from the shadows, a cold observer dismisses the reporter as useless. The mysterious figure orders the car forward, leaving the failure behind. Under the cover of night, a sleek car idles silently on a deserted roadside. Inside the vehicle, a smartphone buzzes relentlessly with an incoming call from the cowardly President Qian. The driver stares ahead with cold resolve, realizing he must bury his secrets before Ying Ce uncovers the truth. Meanwhile, the pale glow of a crescent moon hangs over the quiet exterior of the emergency medical center. Inside the facility, the emergency sign marks the boundary where the night's chaos is being treated. A hand reaches out, quietly retrieving a folded note from a hidden compartment. Lan Yonger sits alone, her arm tightly bandaged as she stares intensely at the mysterious message in her hand. She shifts her gaze toward the hallway as she overhears a voice inquiring about a patient's condition. The doctor calmly explains that while Miss Ling is physically unharmed, she remains deeply shaken by the trauma. Lan Yonger grinds her teeth in frustration, irritated that her rival is once again the center of attention. Suddenly, the door to the recovery room swings open as a visitor arrives to check on her. Ying Ce steps inside, his face etched with concern as he asks for the latest update on her medical status. Trying to appear strong, Lan Yonger assures him that the nurse has already finished dressing her superficial wounds. Relieved she is stable, Ying Ce suggests it's time for her to rest and offers to arrange a driver to take her home. She begins to voice a protest, her eyes wide with the hope of keeping him by her side just a little longer. But Ying Ce's focus has already shifted as he turns his back to search for Dailing's room. He strides down the sterile corridor, his footsteps echoing against the cold floor. He finally finds Lingdi standing alone in a small room, looking lost and vulnerable. He softens his tone, gently telling her that the ordeal is over and it is time to leave. He notices her hesitation and leans in, asking what could possibly be troubling her. Lingdi looks up at him with a vacant, chilling expression and asks the one question he never expected. Who are you? Stunned by the sudden wall between them, Ying Ce can only stare back in disbelief, wondering if she has truly forgotten him. Lingdi gazes at the man before her, her voice trembling as she questions why this stranger keeps haunting her dreams in such bizarre, yet hauntingly familiar attire. Ying Ce leans in, his eyes searching hers for any spark of recognition as he asks if her memories are finally starting to resurface. She admits her mind is a chaotic blur, though a brush with death has brought forth strange, inexplicable visions that she can't quite grasp. Realizing that the trauma nearly triggered her past life's memories, Ying Ce chooses to shield her from the overwhelming truth for now, telling her that such hallucinations are just a common side effect of shock. In the silence of his mind, He begs Zero for just a little more time, promising that he will eventually be the one to help her piece her shattered history back together. Outside, the towering hospital stands silent against the dark night sky, housing the secrets of a past life within its glowing windows. Back in the sterile room, the weight of the day's events leaves Lingdi looking fragile as she rests under the watchful eye of her protector. In a sudden moment of vulnerability, her hand darts out to grab his sleeve, a silent plea for him not to disappear. Looking up with weary eyes, she softly begs him to stay by her side through the night. Without a second thought, Ying Ce reaches out and gently takes her hand in his, offering the steady anchor she so desperately needs. He offers a faint, reassuring smile, promising that he won't go anywhere and will remain right there to accompany her. Ying Ce pulls her into a protective embrace, his heart heavy with the guilt of failing to shield her from the danger she faced. Caught in the warmth of his presence, Lingdi whispers his name, the sound feeling like a key to a door she hasn't yet unlocked. A wave of unfamiliar peace washes over her as she realizes that, for the first time in her life, she feels completely safe and unburdened in someone's arms. Her eyelids grow heavy, the exhaustion of the ordeal finally winning out over her confusion. Finally finding solace in his steady presence, she drifts off into a deep, dreamless sleep against his chest. As the morning light begins to filter through the thin hospital curtains, the harshness of the previous night fades away. Lingdi wakes to find herself still cocooned in the safety of Ying Ce's protective hold, the morning sun illuminating the quiet scene. She brushes a lock of hair from her face, marveling at the fact that she hasn't slept this soundly in a very long time. She realizes that Ying Ce hasn't moved an inch, having remained a constant guard over her throughout the entire night. As she tries to gently shift away to give him some space, she feels the sudden pressure of his arm tightening around her. Though his eyes remain half-closed in a daze of exhaustion, he pulls her back in and firmly tells her not to move. Ying Ce wakes with a confident smile, declaring this morning routine a permanent fixture. Lingdi sits up, puzzled by the restorative sleep she found in his company. The scene shifts to the towering corporate headquarters under a clear sky. Sharp heels click rhythmically as someone paces the hallway in anticipation. The restless footsteps continue, signaling a growing sense of urgency. Lan Yonger waits outside the office, her posture tense and expectant. Staff members bow deeply as Ying Ce arrives with Lingdi at his side. Yonger's expression instantly sours when she spots the pair together. She quickly masks her shock, presenting a stack of professional documents. Ying Ce maintains a cold demeanor while questioning her presence. Yonger reports that the resort project is officially ready for commencement. She attempts to steer the conversation toward a personal promise he once made. Ying Ce shuts her down, citing her unethical tactics as the reason for his distance. He walks away with Lingdi, leaving a dejected Yonger behind. A heavy stack of files is slammed onto the desk with authority. Lingdi stares at the mountain of paperwork, feeling the weight of her new role. Ying Ce instructs her to lead the resort's renovation and manage the design team. The sudden promotion leaves the former spy completely stunned. Despite her protests, Ying Ce insists that his assistant must share his professional burdens. Other employees marvel at the sheer volume of data they now have to process. Lingdi rubs her temples, feeling the onset of a massive workload headache. A coworker notes that she has clearly replaced Yonger as the president's most trusted confidant. Lingdi stares in disbelief at the towering mountains of paperwork that now define her daunting new role. From the shadows of the office, Yonger watches with a cold, calculating gaze, waiting for any sign of her rival's weakness. An assistant gestures toward the massive workload, emphasizing the sheer scale of the administrative tasks Lingdi must master. The weight of these sudden responsibilities clearly takes a toll, leaving Lingdi visibly shaken and overwhelmed by the pressure. Steeling her resolve, she slams her hand onto the stack of documents, determined to tackle the project head-on despite her nerves. While focused on her computer, a chilling notification flashes on a nearby screen, delivering a dark command to eliminate President Qian. Yonger immediately notices the sudden shift in Lingdi's demeanor and wonders what exactly caught her attention. Lingdi quickly moves to hide the device, attempting to maintain a professional composure, despite the shocking nature of the message. Younger's suspicion only deepens as she continues to monitor Lingdi's every subtle movement from across the room. She concludes that Lingdi is definitely hiding a secret, and she is determined to uncover the truth behind it. High above the bustling city, the serene waters of a luxury hotel pool offer a sharp contrast to the growing corporate tension. However, inside one of the hotel rooms, the atmosphere is far from peaceful as a high-stakes crisis unfolds. Hidden away from the world, a man shivers uncontrollably, his entire body racked with a paralyzing sense of dread. President Qian breaks down in a fit of pure terror, convinced that he has finally been cornered by his enemies. The cold, imposing skyscrapers of the city stand tall, indifferent to the desperate life-and-death drama occurring within their walls. Lingdi rises from her desk with newfound purpose, deciding she must visit the resort immediately to assess the situation in person. Not wanting to be left out of the loop, Yonger quickly creates her own excuse to leave, claiming she needs to visit the building materials market. As Lingdi departs from the group, Yonger stays back, her eyes locked onto the departing figure with intense curiosity. She quickly slips out the door, vowing to uncover exactly what Lingdi is planning behind their backs. The chase moves into the bustling city streets, where every alleyway hides a potential secret. Lingdi moves with focused purpose, her sharp reflection flickering across the glass storefronts as she walks. Her gaze remains cold and calculating, fixed firmly on the dark task she has been assigned. Younger creeps around a stone corner, careful to maintain a safe distance to avoid being spotted. Sensing a presence behind her, Lingdi suddenly halts and glances back with a look of sharp suspicion. She breaks into a swift, rhythmic stride, her heels clicking rapidly against the pavement to lose her tail. Realizing her target is slipping away, Younger breaks into a desperate chase to keep her in sight. Suddenly, a heavy green bucket drops from above, landing squarely on Younger's head and stopping her mid-sprint. Trash and debris rain down on the stunned girl, completely ruining her chance at a stealthy pursuit. Younger fumes with rage at the humiliating distraction. Realizing she has been outplayed by a simple trap, she frantically scans her surroundings, but the trail has already gone completely cold. Standing alone in the quiet corridor, she can only wonder where her target has disappeared to. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the sleek, sterile interior of a luxury high-rise hotel. Lingdi pulls out her vibrating phone to check a new, encrypted notification. The message provides the final location for her mission, room 120, with the keycard waiting in its usual spot. She reaches into a hidden nook to retrieve the specialized room card left for her arrival. With the card firmly in her grasp, her expression hardens into that of a cold, professional operative. She stands poised in the lobby, ready to execute her lethal orders with clinical precision. Lingdi scans her surroundings with a sharp, calculated gaze, ensuring no prying eyes are watching her move. Her eyes lock onto a row of secure storage lockers, the next phase of her meticulous plan. Moving with a sense of urgent purpose, she approaches the digital interface of the terminal. Her fingers dance across the keypad, inputting the secret code to unlock her hidden equipment. A heavy black shoulder bag sits inside the compartment, containing everything she needs for the hit. She grabs the strap and swings the bag over her shoulder, wasting no time as she heads for the exit. Lingdi marches straight toward a high-powered motorcycle parked in the shadows of the garage. With a sharp, practiced kick, she engages the engine, the roar of the machine echoing through the concrete. She guns the throttle and tears out of the facility, leaving nothing but a blur of motion in her wake. Arriving at the hotel, she slams on the brakes and brings the bike to a screeching halt at the curb. She quickly blends into the bustling crowd, her expression stoic as she maintains her professional cover. Lingdi reaches the elevator bank, focusing intently on the mission, while she waits for the car to arrive. Inside the confined space, she remains alert, watching the floor numbers climb toward her target's location. As the doors chime and slide open, she steps out with silent precision onto the plush carpet of the luxury floor. She places her hand against the smooth wall, confirming her position near the designated room. A quick, sharp glance over her shoulder confirms she hasn't been followed by any unwanted guests. She sets her bag down, preparing to access the specialized tools required for the task at hand. Inside, her professional gear is neatly organized and ready for immediate deployment. Lingdi begins a rapid change into her operational attire, focusing entirely on the technical execution of the upcoming assassination. Lingdi zips up her tactical suit to finalize her mission preparation. Fully geared, she stands ready with her equipment bag in hand. She places a steady hand against the window frame to assess the exit. Looking out, she identifies her path toward the target. She shifts her gaze, ensuring no one is watching her move. Her hand moves quickly to grab the grappling hook at her hip. With a practiced motion, she winds up to launch the tool. The hook soars through the air and catches firmly onto the railing. She yanks back on the line to confirm it will hold her weight. Gripping the rope firmly, she prepares for the dangerous ascent. Without hesitation, she vaults off the ledge into the open air. She begins climbing the exterior wall with professional efficiency. The hook stays locked in place as she puts it to the test. Her focused expression shows she is entirely committed to the hit. Reaching the next level, she reaches out to grab the ledge. Lingdi pulls herself onto the upper roof, closer to her target. Lingdi lands silently, completing her infiltration. She maintains a cold, professional focus. Her boots click softly as she enters the room. She approaches the target's bed cautiously. She grips her weapon, ready to strike. She lunges forward with lethal intent. The blade hits, but the feeling is wrong. She finds an empty bed beneath the sheets. Shock hits as she realizes it's a trap. Kian mocks her for the predictable attempt. She wonders how her mission was compromised. Guards surround her at gunpoint. A figure approaches from the shadows. Kian orders her to face her executioner. A hand reaches out to intervene. Lingdi remains defiant despite the odds. A violent crash shatters the room's glass. Guards scramble as shards fly everywhere. A masked intruder leaps into the fray. Lingdi questions the mysterious savior's identity. The newcomer confronts a stunned President Kian. The masked savior lunges forward, delivering a devastating kick that sends a guard flying back. He swiftly pivots, pressing a cold blade against a guard's throat and demanding silence with a lethal threat. His piercing green eyes narrow, scanning the room for the next threat with intense focus. However, the numbers game catches up as more guards rush in to restrain him, turning the tide of the struggle. President Kian watches the scuffle with a sadistic grin, mocking the intruder's desperate attempt at a rescue. Lingdi remains paralyzed by the chaos, questioning if this mysterious warrior was truly sent by her organization. She cautiously retreats a step, realizing that a reckless move now could end her life instantly. Beside her, the tension reaches a breaking point as she calculates her slim odds of survival. The masked man is forced down, the sharp edge of a knife drawing closer to his skin as the situation turns dire. Suddenly, Kian erupts in a fit of rage, screaming at his men for potentially ruining his leverage. The terrified guard stammers in defense, claiming the intruder's injury was a self-inflicted act of defiance. Qian refuses to hear excuses, berating his subordinate for the mess and shifting the blame for the bloody outcome. Shaking off the confusion, a guard turns to his leader to ask for their final objective. With a cold, calculated stare, Qian orders his men to eliminate Lingdi and ensure no witnesses remain. Sensing the shift in the air, Lingdi grips her weapon and breaks into a sprint to find an opening. She finds herself cornered, standing her ground against the encroaching guards with a defiant glare. Out of nowhere, a flying blade thuds into the back of a guard, dropping the man before he can even react. Lingdi gasps in pure disbelief as the masked man rises, proving he is far from finished with this fight. President Qian reels back in absolute disbelief, his face pale as he screams out, wondering how his opponent is still alive. Ignoring the outburst, the masked savior calmly adjusts his disguise, radiating an aura of untouchable power. The surrounding guards scatter in a blind panic, screaming, "Monster!" as they flee the impossible scene. Seizing the opening, the mysterious warrior grabs Lingdi's hand and forces her to retreat from the chaos. They burst into a secure room, the heavy door slamming shut behind them to seal out their pursuers. Finally safe for a moment, Lingdi pulls her hand back, her eyes narrowing with suspicion at her silent guardian. The savior turns to face her, his voice low and urgent as he asks her to look closely at him. With a deliberate motion, he reaches up and pulls down the fabric of his mask to reveal his true identity. Lingdi freezes, her eyes widening in a moment of pure, unfiltered shock as she sees the face beneath. She stares at him, her mind racing to connect the man before her with the one she thought was lost forever. Sensing her hesitation, he meets her gaze directly and asks what she wants to say in this tense silence. A soft blush creeps onto her face as she lowers her head, whispering a sincere thank you for his protection. Curious about her intuition, he wonders aloud how she managed to identify him so quickly despite the mask. She explains that his resurrection made it obvious to her exactly who was behind the mask. Internally, she can't help but call him silly for thinking he could ever hide his presence from her. Overcome with relief, he pulls her into a protective embrace, vowing that he won't let her get hurt ever again. Lingdi suddenly winces, her hand shooting up to push him back as the pressure hits her hidden injuries. He immediately backs off, his expression shifting to one of intense worry as he realizes she is in physical pain. His voice turns stern and protective as he demands she leave the organization immediately to avoid such dangerous missions. Ying Ce stares intensely, posing a heartbreaking ultimatum: choose him or the organization. Lingdi stands her ground, reminding him that her life as a killer is all she has ever known. Turning her back on him, she coldly demands that he never interferes with her business again. Devastated by her coldness, Ying Ce clutches his head, wondering if he truly means nothing to her. Lingdi's eyes soften for a fleeting moment as she realizes he can't comprehend the danger of leaving her group. She lowers her head, firmly deciding that she can never agree to such an impossible request. As she walks away into the distance, Ying Ce is left standing in silence, unable to find the words to stop her. The scene shifts to the exterior of a towering skyscraper gleaming under the bright sky. Lingdi enters a private room, her hand lingering on the door handle as she processes the emotional weight of their encounter. She takes a deep, heavy breath, clutching her chest as the physical pain from her injuries begins to catch up with her. Gritting her teeth against the agony, she reaches for a medical kit to begin treating her wounds. Suddenly, Ying Ce appears in the doorway, watching her struggle with a look of deep concern. He steps forward, already holding the medical supplies needed to tend to her damaged shoulder. Lingdi immediately covers the injury, her expression hardening as she tries to maintain her professional distance. Before she can pull away, Ying Ce firmly grabs her wrist to stop her from avoiding the necessary treatment. He insists on helping her with the bandages, but Lingdi stubbornly retorts that she won't die from such a scratch. Ying Ce makes a solemn promise: he will treat her wounds and then disappear from her life forever. Lingdi's eyes widen in shock at the sudden realization that he is actually prepared to leave her for good. Hiding her inner turmoil, she tells him to leave immediately if that's his plan, claiming she doesn't need his concern. Ying Ce finally snaps, his voice trembling as he declares he cannot bear to witness the same tragedy that befell her in her previous life. Lingdi freezes, the words "last life" echoing in her mind as a sudden, inexplicable chill washes over her. Visions of a forgotten era flood her consciousness, showing a version of herself dressed in ancient robes, clutching a blade with a heavy heart. In the hazy distance of her memory, a long-haired Ying Ce reaches out for her, his face a mask of pure desperation as he screams her name. She recalls the ghost of a touch, a tender moment where he cupped her face, while she whispered his name for what felt like the last time. The memory turns brutal as she sees herself collapsed in his arms, a crimson stain spreading across her chest as he begs her not to leave him. Back in the present, Ying Ce closes his eyes in agony, the weight of those centuries-old memories clearly tearing him apart. Lingdi's eyes widen in sheer disbelief as the pieces of a puzzle she didn't know existed begin to click into place. She stares at the man before her, questioning if he is truly the same person who haunted her fragmented dreams. Ying Ce lunges forward and grips her arms, his intensity bordering on madness as he pleads with her to remember her true identity as Zero. The sheer force of the revelation causes a sharp, stabbing pain in her temples, forcing her to clutch her head in confusion. Seeing her struggle, Ying Ce softens his approach, preparing to bridge the gap between their two lifetimes. He pulls her into a protective embrace, whispering that there is an entire history between them that he needs to unveil. They settle down to talk, and Ying Ce begins the tale by revealing that they were once bound by the sacred bond of master and disciple. In the distant past, a young Lingdi bowed before him, accepting his offer to train her in the lethal arts of assassination. A firm hand wraps around the hilt of a sword, signaling the start of a journey forged in steel and blood. Under the open sky of an ancient courtyard, the master patiently guided his student through the complex movements of the blade. But Ying Ce's ambitions reached far beyond simple training, as he harbored a cold disdain for those who thought they could gatekeep power. His grip on his weapon tightens, reflecting a resolve that would eventually change the course of their lives forever. Seated upon a high throne with his sword planted firmly before him, he commanded his followers to prepare for a bloody rebellion at high noon. His eyes burned with a fierce, unyielding fire, vowing that he would never again allow himself to be stepped on by anyone. The scene shifts to the chaos of war, where Ying Ce led his forces into battle under the fluttering banners of revolution. Even as the enemy reinforcements threatened to overwhelm them, he stood his ground, barking orders for his soldiers to give their absolute all in the fight. In the heat of an ancient rebellion, the master's blades clash with lethal precision. Lingdi charges into the battlefield on horseback, determined to join the fight. Ying Ce looks back in shock, stunned by his disciple's reckless arrival. He prepares to defend her, standing firm against the surrounding chaos. The master scolds her, claiming his role is meaningless if he cannot keep her safe. In the present, Lingdi finally realizes these fragments of the past are her actual memories. Ying Ce offers her a medicinal dose, asking if she will finally permit his clinical treatment. During the medical session, Lingdi suddenly loses her strength and collapses onto the sofa. She experiences a sharp, internal heat as the medication takes an unexpected effect. Ying Ce realizes the soothing drug provided by Lan Na was actually a dangerous trap. The patient loses stability, leaning against him as the adverse reaction intensifies. Ying Ce prioritizes her safety while adjusting his professional attire during the crisis. He urges her to maintain composure as he attempts to manage the medical emergency. As her condition rapidly deteriorates, he provides full physical support to keep her upright. Ying Ce reads the technical report and is horrified by the true nature of the substance. The document states the gel acts as a lethal poison if not neutralized within 30 minutes. Stunned by the sabotage, he loses his grip on the medical paperwork. He resolves that he will not allow her to perish before his eyes a second time. To counteract the poison, he prepares to perform a radical procedure to change her biology. As the poison takes hold, Ying Ce catches the fading Lingdi to begin the stabilization process. He monitors her breathing closely, searching for any sign that the toxin is receding. The situation turns dire as he realizes his current medical approach is failing to halt the internal damage. He immediately pulls back, knowing that a standard recovery method will only accelerate the lethal reaction. Lingdi gasps in agony, her body trembling as the venomous substance ravages her nervous system. Ying Ce hardens his resolve, his analytical mind searching for a radical solution to save her life. He prepares to initiate a high-risk energy transfer, intending to use his own unique cellular structure to neutralize the threat. Lingdi's eyes begin to glaze over as she loses her grip on consciousness during the intense procedure. After hours of the exhausting biological stabilization, Lingdi finally sits up and stretches her rejuvenated limbs. Suddenly, a smartphone on the nightstand buzzes with a high-priority alert. The screen displays a cold, demanding message for her to report back to her secret organization immediately. As she attempts to rush out, a firm hand catches her wrist to ensure she is physically stable enough to move. Ying Ce calmly watches her depart, granting her a temporary leave of absence to handle her private affairs. Lingdi navigates the corporate hallways, completely unaware that she is being tracked. From the shadows, Lan Na freezes in pure disbelief at the sight of her rival walking unscathed. The saboteur quickly ducks behind a pillar, realizing her assassination attempt has been thwarted. Lan Na maintains a careful distance, blending into the flow of office staff to follow her target. A dark smirk crosses her face as she resolves to find a more permanent solution for Lingdi. Lingdi eventually stops to meet with two mysterious contacts in a quiet corner of the building. Watching from a hidden vantage point, Lan Na realizes that Lingdi is involved in a far deeper conspiracy than she imagined. To prevent being discovered, Lan Na swiftly delivers a precise strike to a bystander who gets too close to her position. The guard collapses instantly, allowing her to maintain her covert surveillance without interruption. Lingdi soon arrives at the fortified perimeter of a secret compound to deliver her status report. Inside the main hall, a high-ranking official berates his subordinate for the repeated failures in the mission against Ying Ce. The agent can only stare back in silence, paralyzed by the weight of the organization's expectations. Lingdi enters the room and is immediately hit with the tension of the failing operation. She stands her ground, insisting that rushing the hit on Ying Ce without knowing his true weakness is a guaranteed path to failure. The mysterious superior looms over Lingdi, warning her that his mercy has finally reached its limit. As he walks away, Lingdi is left shaken, struggling to place why his cold demeanor feels so familiar. Hiding in the shadows, Lan Na watches the exchange with a calculating gaze, ready to set her own plan in motion. She sneers at the thought of Ying Ce's foolish devotion, seeing his love as nothing more than a fatal flaw. With a wicked smile, Lan Na decides to intervene and help steer the situation toward a bloody conclusion. Lingdi walks through the corridor, her mind racing with the immense pressure of her failing mission. Suddenly, she stumbles upon a heated confrontation unfolding right before her eyes. Lingdi watches from the corner, completely stunned by the sudden violence erupting in the hallway. Lanne stands her ground, taunting her attacker by claiming she's untouchable under the Zombie King's protection. The assailant lunges with a blade, screaming that he has finally discovered the secret to killing the immortal monsters. Acting the part of the victim, Lanne feigns shock that the secret of the zombie bone has been leaked to their enemies. The man ignores her pleas, driven by a desperate rage to end her life right then and there. Lingdi absorbs this vital intel, realizing that a zombie bone might be the only way to finish her target once and for all. Unbeknownst to the others, she is recording every word of the staged argument on her listening device. In a dark room elsewhere, the boss watches the live feed with a cold, triumphant smirk. Lanne glances back with a satisfied grin, knowing Lingdi has walked straight into their carefully laid trap. Lingdi tracks Lanne to a secluded building, wondering if this is where the traitor actually resides. Before she can move, a red-eyed assailant creeps up behind her, blade drawn for a silent kill. Lingdi barely dodges the strike, realizing the entire area is crawling with hostile zombies. Lanne watches the chaos from the doorway, declaring that today is the day Zero finally meets her end. Just as the situation turns dire, Ying Ce arrives like a guardian, shielding Lingdi from the lethal onslaught. Lingdi looks up in utter surprise, shocked that he would risk everything to find her in such a dangerous place. Horror strikes as Ying Ce collapses from his injuries, and Lingdi screams his name in a desperate panic. The boss steps out of the shadows, mocking the sentimentality that has ruined his best assassin. Lingdi stares in disbelief as the man reveals himself to be the mastermind, Cheng Ziyu. He seizes her firmly, demanding that she put aside her feelings and complete the execution of her target. Cheng Ziyu stands over the defeated Ying Ce, holding Lingdi captive to witness the final blow. Tears stream down her face as she finally admits to her boss that she cannot kill the man she loves. Cheng Ziyu bursts into a maniacal laugh, disgusted by the weakness she's displayed in the field. Losing patience, he brandishes his own weapon, deciding to finish the job himself. Lingdi screams a frantic warning as the blade descends toward the injured Ying Ce. Ying Ce cries out in horror, his voice filled with pure despair as the tragedy unfolds. With a final surge of strength, he strikes back at the traitor, wounding Cheng Ziyu in a desperate counterattack. As Lingdi plummets from the balcony, Ying Ce reaches out with everything he has left to save her. He catches her in a protective embrace, promising to stay by her side for eternity regardless of the cost. Lingdi's eyes flare with a crimson light, signaling her rebirth as she awakens to a new, immortal life.